Past 18 months, many videos have resurfaced of Ethan Klein and his wife Ela engaging in dehumanizing conversations regarding Palestinian people, literally referring to a Palestinian person as it at one.
There's another video that I want to watch called SlopTube and Weaponized Ignorance by one of my new favorite accounts, Overzealots. Friend of the show, Overzealots, came out with another banger. Let's take a look.
Corporate media and ivory tower elites have held what seemed to be a monopoly on the flow of information. If you wanted to hear an opinion on a contentious matter, you would have to turn on the corporate media platform of your choosing, and you would be spoon-fed an acceptable position on the topic at hand. For a good long while, this arrangement served corporate interests quite well. As Noam Chomsky and Edward S. Herman put it in their 1988 book, Manufacturing Consent, the mass media serve as a system for communicating messages and symbols to the general populace. It's their function to amuse, entertain, and inform, and to inculcate individuals with the values, beliefs, and codes of behavior that will integrate them into institutional structures of the larger society. In a world of concentrated wealth and major conflicts of class interest, to fulfill this role requires systematic propaganda. This model of subtle propaganda and gatekeeping of serious discussion has fallen out of favor in recent years due to the rise of alternative media figures and platforms. From YouTube to Twitter to Rumble for the really bad boys, these alternative media platforms have proven to resonate quite well with the average person. And for good reason. People have begun to see through the elitist corporate stronghold that traditional media held over the flow of information for decades. And for a lot of people, they've become disillusioned with the status quo that those institutions were propped up to protect. People are tired of feeling as though serious political conversation can only be reserved for ivory tower elites and fucking Anderson Cooper. So when they hear a seemingly down-to-earth guy like Joe Rogan talk with his buddy who has an interest in politics or aliens or what have you, it's easy to resonate with them and latch on to folks like that for insight on current events and world news. Same goes for his contemporaries, who seem to offer an alternative to the polished media institutions of old and instead sell you their personalities, ranging from humble and inquisitive to whatever this is. However, as we've recently seen, these alternative media ecosystems very quickly begin to replicate the undesirable aspects of traditional corporate media. From sketchy funding to audience capture, independent media has proven not to be immune to the shortcomings of its predecessor. But worst of all, these alternative media spheres are a breeding ground for anti-intellectualism. I know that sounds like a really elitist word, but I do think it's important to know what it means and how to spot it in the wild. Anti-intellectualism is hostility to and mistrust of intellect, intellectuals, and intellectualism, commonly expressed as deprecation of education and philosophy and the dismissal of art, literature, history, and science as impractical, politically motivated, and even contemptible human pursuits. Anti-intellectuals may present themselves and be perceived as champions of common folk, populists against political and academic elitism, intend to see educated people as a status class that dominates political discourse and higher education while being detached from the concerns of ordinary people. Sound familiar? This is the entire MO of Alex Jones, Tucker Carlson, and the like. Anti-intellectualism, with its disdain for science, embrace of conspiracy theories, and us versus them mentality.
Here's what I'm telling you. If you're on a flat earth, you can travel anywhere. Give me two cities, Eddie, you point at two cities, and you just go there. Because we've been lied to so much, I get what you question.
Is the foundation of reactionary politics and a driving force behind the rise of the far right.
I thought Churchill was the chief villain of the Second World War.
I don't like them putting chemicals in the water that turn the friggin' frogs gay.
But this video is not about Joe Rogan, Alex Jones, or Tucker Carlson. It's actually about a subset of alternative media that I like to refer to as SlopTube. I didn't coin this term, but SlopTube typically refers to content creators, not necessarily just YouTubers, who create run-of-the-mill drama commentary or pop culture content, typically from what they claim to be an apolitical perspective. SlopTube content ranges from covering interpersonal beefs between YouTubers, all the way over to political commentary that's supposed to be somewhat centrist but often carries water for the right. I don't use the term SlopTube as a pejorative. I actually engage in the slop every now and then. I think there are certain creators in this realm who do a really good job. I also concede the point that left-wing YouTube or BreadTube or whatever it's called is definitely home to some annoying motherfuckers, so you don't need to convince me on that. But the reason I want to look into SlopTubers for this video is because they benefit from a very special type of defense. Let's call it weaponized ignorance. It's where they utilize their position as ostensibly apolitical content creators to shield themselves from criticism when they throw their hat in the ring on serious political conversations. They may not even know that they benefit from this, but regardless of their intentions, their positions in the online ecosystem allot them this privilege. Again, I don't think it's wrong for them to cover contentious political topics. I'm actually happy that they do because I think there's things that we can all learn from each other, and discussion shouldn't be stifled due to a perceived lack of credentials. But my point here is that they should treat serious topics with the respect they deserve. That includes backing up their statements with sources, and when they get something wrong on a contentious subject, issuing a correction.
Hezbollah is credited with about 500,000 deaths in Syria.
Let's ask our friend ChatGPT.
I've looked into this pretty extensively. Okay. Hezbollah has killed significantly more people, by almost like 10 times, I think. I mean, we don't know the exact numbers coming out of Gaza at the moment. I'm trying to dry off the jack. Are you reading something contradictory, AB?
Yeah, I mean, ChatGPT says, overall, due to the scale of frequency of IDF operations over decades, they have likely caused more Muslim casualties than Hezbollah.
No shot. Hold on. What was the question you asked it?
Hezbollah versus IDF, who has killed more Muslims?
Ask if it's including the Syrian civil war. I mean, that makes no sense. I've literally fact-checked this a million times, I feel like.
In reality, their positions as drama creators actually serve as a shield for them when they irresponsibly cover a serious topic. Like I said, weaponized ignorance. You can think of it as a cousin to anti-intellectualism in the way that it shuns responsible inquiry.
Yup. That is objectively a falsehood that is being spreaded. That is being spread in that moment. A complete falsehood. The idea that Hezbollah is responsible for every single death that took place in the Syrian civil war, including some of their own fucking militants, is so idiotic. Like that's what he said. Yeah, I said spread it. I'm stupid. That's just false. We don't know what the actual estimations are, but Ethan thinks by looking at Wikipedia and seeing the top line 500,000 number, the overall number of slain people in the Syrian civil war, he just says they all died in the hands of Hezbollah. What I find particularly strange about this argument is that there were a lot of people that died due to both potentially the usage of chemical weapons and, more importantly than that, definitely the usage of barrel bombs. The notion that Hezbollah has access to either of these things is idiotic. It's not one made by any human rights organization, let alone any think tank, as a matter of fact. And the reason why, and no matter how right-wing they are, no matter how anti-Hezbollah they are, the notion that they are responsible for 500,000 deaths when you are talking about multiple factions, multiple belligerents, almost all of them a direct or indirectly funded by the United States of America, but that's not what we're going to get into. The idea that this is your mods forgot to ping the Discord that you're live and I just joined now, Lamau. Wait, really? I doubt it. There's always a server announcement. I think it's automated. Oh shit, maybe there wasn't one. What the fuck? I'm looking at the server announcements. Is like, wait, where's? Oh, it's HasanAbi updates, isn't it? Not server announcements. No, there is. Oh yeah, there isn't one today. That's crazy. I was wondering what happened to the fucking view counts. Here, I'll post it right now. Well, no, Yas is doing it. Do it, Yas. Post it. I thought that one chatter in the beginning of the broadcast was lying when they said we don't have we didn't get a Discord noti today. That's crazy, bro. I post on every platform and motherfuckers still don't know. Like some people exclusively rely on Discord, I guess. Announcement 3 hours in. Okay, everyone's popping off with reactions to the announcement. Why would anybody need a server announcement when you're live every day? I don't know, dude. People do. Let's see if it leads to a blip in people. Let's see if it leads to a blip in people actually logging on. That's why people want you to post on Blue Sky too. For what it's worth, some people just only use one platform and don't see the blast offs. Yeah. Yeah, it did. 400 people instantly joined, by the way, which is crazy. As soon as that announcement took place, 400 people joined. That is fucking psychotic. That there were at least 400 people in the fucking Discord that were just like, oh, I guess Hasan's not live today. And they needed to see a ping to be like, oop, it's 500 now. That is crazy. Y'all are fucking cavemen. I swear to God. That is wild. Yeah, it's a bot. It's supposed to be a bot. Normally. Wow. Anyway, right now we're watching SlopTube and Weaponized Ignorance. How Careless Coverage Hurts by friend of the show, Overzealots. You got Maya telling his impromptu chat voice. Do you tell your guests anything? No, I don't. Now we're up to 600. Discord ping has brought in 600 new viewers. That is crazy. 3 hours in.
And in many instances keeps these creators insulated from having to actually put the work in to appropriately research the topics they broach. Often, these creators dabble in these topics not because they have a genuine concern for the subject at hand or because they cherish journalistic integrity, but because it's an easy way to get views and, more importantly, it's an easy way to stake out a position contrary to a creator they dislike and use contentious.
Oh my God, there's literally more people that are online in my Discord server right now than there are in this chat. That's crazy. That's probably the total number of haters. There's the stalkers as well. And the people that used to be HasanAbi heads who now fucking are anti-HasanAbi head. Anyway. Wait, hold on. 1 second. Gotta send a text message to Maya Higa. Inbound e-debate request. Up to 700 now. All right, let's continue.
His political topics as a proxy for personal issues, as we will see later in this video. Keep in mind, this apolitical veneer requires these creators to lend credence to the narrative that the far left and the far right are equally morally objectionable.
I'll tell you who we're talking about. You don't think Hasan has influence online?
Of course he does.
He's
yeah,
mainstream.
for sure.
So this is like Donald Trump hanging out with Nick Fuentes. Like, you don't think that matters?
Which results in this stupidity being parroted by their viewers.
I believe the biggest streamer on the left, Hasan Piker, he's just extremely, radical, and gets people just really worked up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, how about we look on the right? Nick Fuentes. Which one do you think
That's
is
a
more
good point.
harmful?
Honestly, between them, Hasan Piker, he literally plays
Hasan Piker? What? You don't even know his last name.
I'm so sorry, but saying that like Hasan produces worse outcomes for society than a neo-Nazi that loves Hitler and gets like 40,000 viewers is absolutely radical.
In their chase for clicks and relevance, their audience is left with a hodge.
This is such a perfect demonstration of how idiotic information basically goes from the mouth of a drama slop tuber who doesn't know any better or wants to exercise a petty vengeance quest or an agenda that they have to the minds of some of the most brain-broken, apolitical people who we need as allies. You laugh at these people, but you need stupid people to build a movement. You can't just have a movement of smart people, okay? This is something that I talk about all the fucking time. You need the dummies. And the problem is there's literally this human wall in front of all the dummies. It's like a dam built by the Keemstar orbiters of the fucking world, the drama slop tubers of the fucking world that are holding on to all the dummies and trying to keep them within this reactionary framework, whether by design or inadvertently. It doesn't even matter. They're literally holding on to these fucking stupid people and not letting them get access to extra information, not letting them get access to what is this? You are worse than this for sure. It's not complicated at all. Jews are ruining society, running society. Women need to shut the fuck up. Blacks need to be in prison for the most part. Fixing these issues will grant us a utopia, according to Nick J. Fuentes. Yeah, like this dude, that dude, when you think personally that person and I are on the same wavelength in radicalism, you've lost your fucking mind, right? You've lost your mind. You have no politics. You might as well be a fucking Nazi at that point. You know what I mean? You just think that like these are just opinions that exist out there. These are opinions that exist, and some people have them, and then there is no impact of ideology. There's no impact of the perspectives at all. It's just simply how much you deviate from the mean. That is the only thing you care about. Whether or not something deviates from what you consider to be normal politics is the only thing you care about. That's a real problem for a lot of apolitical dummies who want to appear as though they are smart without ever actually having to do any reading whatsoever, without ever actually having to think at all about these things, about politics, about what political ideologies look like, what if implemented, what society would look like. The only way that you look to someone like myself who believes that, especially in the short term, like not even in the long term, let's look at it. Let's look at the difference in opinion between someone like Nick Fuentes and someone like myself in the short term, and then maybe even in the long term. In the short term, I believe that we need to get universal health care, that we need to nationalize our extraction industries and ensure that we are focusing back on, we're focusing all of our efforts in R&D into fixing some of the problems born out of anthropogenic climate change. The revenue streams that come from the extraction industry becoming nationalized will yield tremendous bounties for the American population. I'm an anti-imperialist. In the short term, I believe that we need to severely de-escalate military conflicts around the world, right? I see the military as a jobs program, and we have plenty of issues in here on the domestic front, and plenty of issues globally as well. The military should be a business or a government body that focuses on building bridges and shit rather than blowing up bridges and killing children, right? Like, these are the types of things that I believe both in the short term and in the long term. Can you imagine what society would look like if these attitudes were, if more people had these sorts of attitudes, and if these opinions were reflected broadly across society and our politicians actually followed on those promises? Free college, free healthcare, free education across the board, free housing for those who need it. Like, these are the types of things. These are the radical positions that I have. And then on the other side, you have, and that is certainly, my opinion, I'm not going to lie to you, is radical. It is radical as opposed to what the mean currently looks like, unfortunately. But that is more so, in my opinion, damning for where society actually is. It is by no measure of health to be well adjusted to a sick society. We are living in a sick society, right? So on that front, I will admit that I am far away from the rational center, right? It's not so rational, but the center. Now, on the other side, you have a guy who is anti-miscegenation, white supremacist, Holocaust denier, constantly says like Jews run everything in this country, all this stuff, right? In the short term, what he wants to do is mass deportations of anyone and everyone who is not white. So even in his short-term goals, if implemented, which by the way, unfortunately, just the way right-wing politics works, the way neo-Nazi politics works, especially because it's not disruptive to the pre-existing hierarchies of capitalism especially, you will see a lot more politicians resemble Nick Fuentes' outlook, like Donald Trump is doing right now, by the way, as opposed to politicians on the left, on the ostensible duopoly where the Democrats are the left. You're not going to see a lot of politicians that have my worldview. So tell me how I am just as damaging the public discourse as a guy like that. The reason why people say that is because they are conditioned into defending the center, no matter how far that center is shifted to the right. That's it. People want to sound smart. And a lot of these people, I think, a lot of these content creators in general that present themselves as apolitical, that simply care about the drama, are basically building an intellectual dam around what they perceive is good politics, reasonable politics. They're not doing it. Most likely, they're not doing it on purpose. Some of them are reactionary. Some of them do say slurs and all this other shit. But others are simply doing it because there's a lot of clout to be had, because the algorithm does back, alt-centrist and alt-right types of opinions. So they see that. They see the resentment, and dollar signs start popping up in front of their eyes, and they dive into it. That's it. Like, why do you think XQC has completely done a fucking 180-degree pivot on what his worldview used to look like? He was never like the most woke or the most well-read when it comes to political ideology. But why? Why did XQC become like an Asmongold dick rider, for example? Why did Asmongold become what he is now? Because they saw the dollar signs. They saw the fucking clout and relevance you can gain. Because one of the major platforms, aside from Facebook, a platform that at least young people still do use, like Twitter, became a neo-Nazi shithole. And in that process, that started impacting other platforms and their algorithms as well. And that's it. For a lot of these people, they have no real beliefs. They have no core beliefs that guide them. They have no moral compass that guides them. They just simply want to shoot the shit and watch the money go up. Watch the viewership number go up. That's it. It's not about money for XQC either, to be fair. It's about relevance. It's about acceptance. For a lot of people, they don't fucking think about politics. They don't think about politics as a real way to change the world. They think about politics as a way to be accepted. Okay? That's their attitude towards politics. Is like, I want to be a part of an in-group. I want to be able to have a lot of people that watch me and say I'm smart. Do you understand? That's what it is for a lot of these guys. It sounds silly when you think about it, but that's all this is.
Podge of half-baked ideas and little nuance about the topics their favorite creator just introduced them to. So, in a bit of an ironic twist, I'm going to cover some SlopTubers to highlight examples of this behavior, which I guess makes me the SlopTuber this time. Sorry. The main creators I want to focus on in this video are the live streamer Asmongold, Mutahar from the YouTube channel SomeOrdinaryGamers, and the very well-known YouTuber and podcaster Ethan Klein of H3H3 Productions. These three people are in no way...
Bro, this is perfect because it's like all three different ideologies, okay? You got right-winger with Asmongold. You got Mutahar that's supposed to be the apolitical centrist. And you have Ethan who's supposed to be the liberal. Okay? Three different political ideologies demonstrated, and yet the outcome is going to be the exact same. Now, I didn't watch this video. It just came out. But it's really interesting how a lot of the slop focus, basically turns you into this this vehicle for a very specific type of content.
The only creators who exhibit this behavior, but they will serve as great examples of what I'm talking about. The reason I want to focus specifically on them is because their stories are somewhat intertwined, and they have all at some point in the past year and a bit made content that broaches the very serious geopolitical topic that is the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. So before we start, I need to fill you in on some context and explain how we got here. Back in 2021, subject of this video, Ethan Klein, was one half of a political podcast called Leftovers. His co-host was the left-wing commentator Hasan Piker. Now, their podcast was, in my opinion, very enjoyable. It benefited greatly from the dynamic between the two. Ethan came across as the well-intentioned, slightly left-leaning funny guy, and Hasan assumed the role of the more seasoned political commentator. The podcast came to an end in late 2023, largely due to the October 7th attack in Israel. I'm not going to go into detail about how exactly this show and their friendship came to an end because it's not the most important part of this video, and frankly, I don't care much about the interpersonal drama between them. But in a nutshell, Ethan lived in Israel for a bit, and his wife, Ela, served in the IDF, while Hasan is a vocal advocate for the Palestinian plight. After October 7th, 2023, Ethan began making statements that many interpreted as tacit defenses of Israel, sparking backlash from his progressive fan base. He compared the organization Jewish Voice for Peace to capos.
The reason why I brought up Jewish Voice for Peace and other groups using this as well, like Jews themselves in America using this anti-Zionist slogan, indicates that this slogan isn't one that is about the evisceration of Jews. If that was the case, then they wouldn't use it.
There was Jewish collaborators with fucking Nazis.
Ethan, don't do that, please. Don't say that the Jews' Voice for Peace are akin to capos.
Made a disturbing remark about Aaron Bush.
What's crazy is, like, he's done that since, too. He did this with Sam Cedar, comparing Sam Cedar to Candace Owens. Like, he doesn't understand that comparison is not apt. Like, he genuinely doesn't understand that. Either he doesn't understand that comparison is not apt. Like, he thinks it's a good way to undermine the argument. He thinks it's a good way to undermine the argument by saying, well, you can have a marginal group of people that support any cause, but like when you make that comparison, you're basically saying that the morality is similar. You're not able to simply tackle the concept of you're using a tiny marginal group to advance a certain cause, unless you do truly believe that they're capos. Unless you truly do believe that Sam Cedar would be the Candace Owens of like being an anti-Zionist.
Bushnell by saying he burns alive really good.
Not to put this uncouth, but
yeah, he thinks he's just saying that a minority can be dead wrong. He doesn't understand it's literally an accusation. Exactly. Yeah, he backed away from calling Sam Cedar Candace Owens and then said Blair White instead, which again is the same, but this time now the Candace Owens for trans people. What? He doesn't make arguments based on the truth. He makes arguments based on their potential utility to the point he wants to wishcast into existence. Yes. So I do, in a weird way, understand why he like can't comprehend why people yell at him when he says stuff like this, right? When he says, when he makes that comparison, he's like, well, I don't understand. Like, why are you saying that? I'm just simply making a point that like a tiny marginal group does not broadly reflect the entire group. They can have crazy opinions, right? Like, I get that is the argument that he's trying to make to undermine the position that I'm presenting. But when you make this comparison, you are saying that they are in the wrong because your position is that they are wrong.
he's a champ at fucking burning a lot. I mean, and that sounds bad, but he did it really good.
And echoed Ben Shapiro-style talking points by telling a pro-Palestinian sex worker that Hamas would kill him on the spot. As if this would, convince the guy to support Palestinian oppression? I don't know what Ethan's trying to do here. Ethan's brand of liberal Zionism increasingly alienated many of his progressive viewers. He later blamed Hasan for this shift, claiming that Hasan's more leftist politics had radicalized the audience into disagreeing with him. Ever since this, Ethan has relentlessly attacked pro-Palestinian advocates.
Damn, this is such a short but concise way to describe, like, the last year and a half of the Ethan Klein broadcast is crazy.
I am so proud to be marching with so many Jews.
Yes, the Jews! The Jews are here! Did we mention that? Mm-hmm. And I hope he is fired.
Socialists, Marxists.
Karl Marx, I got a fucking lot to say about that dipshit. Mao was a dumb bitch. What the fuck did he do? Actually, he did a lot. He helped China a lot, but at what cost?
It's just kind of funny that he's wearing a Teddy Fresh t-shirt that is made in a Chinese manufacturing facility while also actively shitting on China regularly, and even Mao. Without Mao, there is no Teddy Fresh, okay? That should be, oh my God. Oh my God, that's the new song. This is, what's the song? Without Mao, there is no modern China. Or without the Communist Party, there would be no new China. But instead, without the Communist Party, there would be no Teddy Fresh. That's what they should be singing. Not an E-fan, but you just did the just curious, but you live in a society meme, but for China. Dude, this is not a you live in a society meme. He actively shits on China on a regular basis, including their manufacturing practices while literally manufacturing from China. Could you imagine? Like, here's the difference. I fucking criticize I criticize American manufacturing moving to China. I do. I like China. I think China has done a tremendous amount of development, uplifted 800 million people out of extreme poverty. That is incredible. That is an incredibly impressive feat. Part of that was because of the endless profit-seeking attitude of capital owners here in the United States of America. I can recognize that. But what do? I criticize the fact that capital owners have moved manufacturing overseas. What do I do when I make merchandise? I make it in the United States of America with unionized labor. Okay? Imagine messaging a creator who uses American union labor to create merch to say it's not their fault they have to manufacture in China. Yeah, exactly. That's what that chatter did. You live in a society meme doesn't work in that sense, especially when you're a fucking YouTuber as well. When you're a YouTuber, like it's not your, your major moneymaker. It's not supposed to be your major moneymaker to begin with, the merchandising side. You just want higher profit margins. That's it. But your merch takes over a month to ship. Yeah, sucks to suck, dude. What do you want to do? If you want American-made, union-made shit, it's going to take some time, okay? That, I think, makes it better. The weight makes it worth more. What are you on about? You can criticize China and wear their clothes. I can wear Bangladeshi jeans and still criticize neocolonialism. Dog, I don't think you're understanding this. You are not making the jeans. That is the difference. Hello, you are not making the jeans. You are not making the jeans. If you were like, oh man, neocolonialism is really fucked up, and then you turned around and manufactured jeans as a jeans provider from a manufacturing hub in Bangladesh that uses child labor, then yeah, it would be a little hypocritical. Here, let me reverse the roles for you. Okay? If I, for example, oh, this guy's Mao was an upper class sociopath who hated the peasants and the workers and used them as if they were disposable. Okay, there's the truth. There it is. There we go. Thank you for not letting me go down this route and openly revealing what your position was on the matter. Yeah, you just don't like Mao. Got it. Okay, fine. That's fine. That's okay. But if we're having a conversation around, like, hypocrisy, not perceived hypocrisy, but like actual hypocrisy, imagine if I, for example, socialist HasanAbi Piker was manufacturing in China, how would that make you feel? Mao was not a socialist or a communist. He was a feudal elite defending feudalism. There is 0% chance I have a 41-month subscriber that is unironically saying this. I'm making fun of the chat. Oh, thank God. I was about to say, that's the one thing that... Like, there are plenty of valid and warranted criticisms about Mao or the Cultural Revolution or Chinese development, okay? Even with looking at where China is now as opposed to where it was, right? There's going to be a lot of pain and a lot of struggle along the way, and there certainly was. But to say that, you know, he's secretly pro-feudalism is hilarious. That's the one thing you can't say. As a matter of fact, part of the reason why China is at the place that it's at is because he was not that. And it played a major role in him gaining popularity and turning people to his side, because the peasant class was desperate for changes and did not want fucking landlords to exchange hands from one colonial rulership to the nationalist party. Anyway, but that's besides the point. Do not worry if others do not understand you, but worry if you do not understand them. Americans are so delusional about China, and I'm starting to see the benefits of that ignorance. Okay, Top G. Right now, that's where you found out America's beneficial ignorance. Yeah, right. Because China is currently classless. There is no establishment, and they don't have servants. They treat like shit. Fantastic. Yes, China did not magically become a socialist utopia overnight, nor a communist one. I know. I'm not American. I'm from a real place. Okay, you are exhibiting the same American-style brain rot in this regard, especially because you need to adjust your expectations. I have plenty of criticism of China as well, okay? But the reality of the matter is, I don't have any fucking motion in terms of developing real existing socialism. So I'm not going to sit around and be like, well, there's a magical utopian socialism out there that could have magically happened overnight. And it's really fucked up that it hasn't happened yet. You know, I am going to continue maintaining a healthy dose of skepticism towards all states. Having said that, but you skip over those criticisms of China when it's convenient? No, I skip over those criticisms of China when it's a normal conversation to have. I do speak about those criticisms of China. You just want me to constantly go, Chinese, Tiananmen Square, development, Xinjiang is good, fucking, I don't know, mass surveillance, social credit. Like, that's what you want me to do. You want me to slam those terms in place every single time. Like, if I were to talk about the American Revolution, for example, you would be like, why aren't you talking about how they were slave owners? Well, Washington owned slaves' teeth. Washington owned slaves' teeth. Tofu concrete, go cities. Yeah, exactly. Henry Kissinger, nukes, NSA mass surveillance, Kent State, University Church, Kent State Uni, Church of Scientology, David Miscavige, Occupy Wall Street, May 4th, 1970 massacre, May 13th, 1985 move bombing, Red Summer, 1919, House Un-American Activities Committees, Trail of Tears, Jim Crow segregation, Japanese internment camps. Like, you want me to just like fucking every time I talk about America, if you don't expect me to say all of those things in unison, then every time I talk about China, why the fuck would I say all of those other things in unison? Yeah, but it makes you look like a simp who lacks nuance. No, it doesn't. Because no, it doesn't. And here's why it doesn't. Because I don't fucking mention all of America's war crimes every single time I talk about America, because that would be fucking insane. Just as mentioning all of the shit that China has done, both historically and also continues to do, would be ridiculous every time I talk about China. It's like every country, okay? It's like the expectation is when I say, I love that the United Kingdom has a nationalized healthcare system, and motherfuckers chime in and they're like, they had 13 colonies. Think about all the death and destruction and famine in India. What the fuck are you saying? You know what I mean? Or if I'm like, Or if I talk about like even Churchill, right? Like or FDR, in the context of like what they did during World War II, which I think was incredibly beneficial for mankind, right? Defeating the Nazis. Very good. Very cool. Same with Stalin. The expectation whenever I talk about Stalin in World War II is that I talk about gulags, paranoia, mass famine. But when I talk about Churchill, there is no such expectation that I constantly slam the conversation, or FDR, such expectation, or where I slam the conversation with like a bunch of shit that they did, you know? You work through it. Japanese anime. Ain't nobody talks about Imperial Japan. Japanese anime. Ain't nobody talks about Imperial Japan and the Holocaust style crimes that they did in fucking Manchuria, for example. That's not a point of contention for many of you. One must ask the question, why? And that's normal. The expectation isn't that you fucking demand that out of a foreign nation. Do you want to know why? Because Japan is wonderful anime country. The Holocaust style crimes that they did in fucking Manchuria, for example. That's not a point of contention for many of you. One must ask the question, why? And that's normal. The expectation isn't that you fucking demand that out of a foreign nation. Do you want to know why? Because Japan is wonderful anime country. And you've already adopted that framework. You say China once and you have to go on a 10-minute tangent because chatters see red and lose their minds. Exactly. I do think it's valuable to go on this 10-minute tangent every single time, though, because I think every time I have this conversation, there's more people that go, you know what? I never actually thought about it that way. I'm going to check my own personal biases. Because it's a worthwhile thing to tackle, because it's calcified positions over the course of 100 years of Red Scare propaganda from the country that did all of the Red Scare propaganda and was very successful at it. So I think it's important for Americans to develop a different perspective on it. You know, I was literally just thinking, I've never thought about it that way. Yeah. Lol, not exactly. You went on a 10-minute tangent. I made a pretty valid criticism. Then you made up a straw man that you got mad at for 10 minutes. You're just projecting a character you've come across before onto the argument I'm making. You're not addressing what I'm saying. This stemmed from you saying someone shouldn't criticize China if they wear Chinese clothes. Should in fact thank Mao when it's actually only Deng that they have to thank, reversing Mao's narcissistic sociopathy. Oh, I love Dengists, dude. Without Mao, there is no Deng. Okay? Without Mao, there is no Deng. And without either of them, there is no Xi Jinping either. That's it. Notice how you understand certain evolutions of Chinese thought and Chinese policies and respect it, but not others. Perhaps it is not the individuals that you should be focusing on. Okay? Please explain to me the genius within a great leap forward. I don't even disagree with you on that. And the argument wasn't even that at all. The argument wasn't even that. The argument in and of itself was not that at all. The argument was, if you have the capacity to engage in manufacturing and you constantly shit on China, then it's a little hypocritical for you to continue doing manufacturing in fucking China. That was my argument. Are you trying to tell me that Ethan is actually a Dengist? Is that what you're saying? Ethan is ideologically a Dengist, and that's why it's perfectly valid for him to be manufacturing in China, even though he still shits on China all the goddamn time. No, it's a little hypocritical. It's the same as what all these conservatives say. What do all these fucking conservatives say? They're like, you want to make cheap Chinese goods. You just want cheap Chinese goods. And then you look at their fucking website. You just go click on their website, and all of their shit is made in China. Do you see what I'm saying? If you can comprehend that those guys are being silly and hypocritical, why can't you see that for someone that you think is closer to your worldview, like Ethan? That was the original point of contention. Why do leftists defend Stalin? Genuinely asking in good faith? Because it was an attempt at developing a socialist. It was a moderately, not even moderately, it was a fairly successful attempt at developing a socialist nation state or federation of socialist nation states. And And that is the reason why. And also because of his contributions to mankind in terms of freeing the fucking concentration camps and eliminating the Nazi scourge. So those are pretty fucking prominent. Like Stalin in and of itself did a lot of... Stalin in and of itself also mismanaged a whole bunch, okay? Especially early socialist developments had a lot of issues with famine. A lot. Like unimaginable amounts of issues with famine. The problem, of course, is that famine was widespread across the board, almost universalized. And for example, when you look at the case of China, it no longer exists. So clearly, throughout all that process that was awful, throughout that process that was ultimately horrible for the people living through it at the time, when you look at the current existence, current Chinese existence, it's like, it's hard to look at that and go, man, that was a real fucking failure. Also, Stalin was very paranoid too, but given the confines of his existence and what took place in the aftermath of World War II, there was a little bit of justification for his paranoia, even though he certainly, it certainly contributed to his, bad leadership down the line. But look at what happened to the USSR after. There's just so many things I can say about this, okay? And that's besides the point. We're not doing a assessment or an autopsy of what went wrong in the fucking USSR. It's not even like people go out of their ways to praise Stalin. It's simply a reaction to a century of propaganda against him when the Allies committed even worse war crimes. They got the image of heroes. Listen. Like I said, I guess if I were to steel man the argument, if Chiang Kai-shek had won the Civil War, then China would still have a textile industry exploited by the Western world without Mao's help, building up Chinese workers on a similar trajectory as India, maybe? Yes, 100%. That's actually a pretty solid steel man of the argument. If the nationalists had won in China, China would be probably significantly more divided, ironically enough, but also simultaneously, they would not have the prosperity that you see in China right now, which would be incredibly beneficial for American capital owners. It would be a nation state of a billion plus peasants that are still illiterate to this day. And remember, this has nothing to do with culture, okay? This is at the heart of my advocacy, which is that people are not culturally a certain way. It's all about their material conditions. Are you expected to mention all their crimes when speaking about any institution, or is it a double standard for U.S. foreign adversaries? No, of course, that's the point. That was the argument that I was making. The expectation is never to mention every single fucking war crime that America is engaged in. The expectation when talking about a foreign ally is not all of the war crimes that foreign allies have engaged in or the existing issues within their governance. And that is because it's a solid way to shut off the conversation. I can't believe we went on a fucking 25-minute tangent now. Let's continue.
He did a lot for China, I think. I don't know a lot about it.
And pretty much anyone to his left, denouncing them as radicals, anti-Semites, and terrorist sympathizers. He's even gone so far as to make a nearly 2-hour video titled Content Nuke Hasan Piker, in which he propagates lie after lie about Hasan, Palestinian history, the Nakba, and so on. But we'll get back to this later. Despite all this, Ethan still claims to be a stalwart supporter of the Palestinian cause.
I've been a stalwart supporter of the Palestinian cause for many years.
And the reason he feels this way is because he's critical of the current Netanyahu government and he supports a two-state solution. But as has been noted by Iraqi-Israeli historian Avi Shleim and many others like him, by its settlement expansion, Israel effectively killed the two-state solution. What is left of the West Bank is a collection of Palestinian enclaves surrounded by Israeli settlements and military bases that cannot form a viable state. In short, the two-state solution is dead, or to be more accurate, it was never born. The outcome I have come to favor is one democratic state between the River Jordan and the Mediterranean Sea, with equal rights for all its citizens regardless of ethnicity or religion. Proponents of a two-state solution also often tend to overlook the right of return for the over 7 million Palestinian refugees.
Wait. It took me like 20 of these same exact rants for it to go through to me. I used to think you were too nice to China, and you slowly convinced me very slowly. Never stop re-explaining the same point. Hell yeah.
Refugees and their descendants living outside the Israeli-Palestinian borders, despite UN Resolution 194 affirming their right to return to their homes if they so choose. Apart from this, focusing solely on Netanyahu or the far right in Israel obscures the broader reality. The foundational project of Israel is one of ethno-religious supremacy and ethnic cleansing. Even relatively liberal or supposedly peaceful Israeli leaders are guilty of atrocities. To ignore that is to miss the forest.
Yeah, Yitzhak Rabin is a great example of this. Yitzhak Rabin is hailed in Israeli history by liberal Zionists as like the one guy that was finally going to create permanent peace among Palestinians and Israelis. And Yitzhak Rabin himself was vicious. He was a vicious monster when he was in charge of the security apparatus, where he was famous for demanding to break the hands of Palestinian children that were throwing rocks, because throwing rocks became a symbol in the first Intifada, a symbol of resistance for children, Palestinian children. So his he deliberately demanded that the security forces break the bones of Palestinian children to basically break the will of the Palestinian symbol of resistance. And they did. They successfully broke the arms, sometimes legs, and sometimes many other bones of thousands of Palestinian children for the crime of throwing rocks against the Israeli tank.
For the trees. Ethan opposes lifting the blockade on Palestinians because he believes they would resort to violence if given the chance.
A one-state solution just eliminates like one internal faction that is an ever-present danger. And
you're telling me if we were to lift the blockade and the wall around Gaza today, there wouldn't be more violence against Israelis?
But this ignores a crucial reality. Palestinians have endured brutal oppression. That oppression needs to end. And while some have responded with violence, it's a response to systemic abuse, not some innate desire to harm Israelis.
I'm so glad that someone is highlighting a conversation that Ethan and I had that is so illuminating about everything that transpired afterwards. Like, this is what I should urge people to do, to like go back and listen to our back and forth virtually like 4 days after October 7, okay? Or like almost a month, maybe a month. I forget exactly when we had this conversation, but this was the last conversation we ever had. And it's so interesting because if you go back and listen to that conversation from start to finish, you understand what his worldview looks like. You understand what my worldview looks like. And you realize why he moved in the direction that he did in terms of like defending Israel in the ways that he did. This was literally in 2023. And you know what's really ironic about it? I was so fucking nice to Ethan in this conversation because I was like, please, like, don't do this. You know, November 9th, apparently, is when I had this conversation. And I was trying to help a friend walk through this situation, understanding what kind of baggage that they had, what kind of social conditioning that they had, okay? Hoping that they could develop empathy. And what's ironic about this is that all of the SlopTubers that covered this convo focused on how mean I was. They fucking supposedly love Bloodsport, but in this conversation that took place where I was so goddamn nice too, so fucking nice, in that conversation, they focused on what the chat was saying or how mean I was and how ridiculous it was that I was such a meanie bobini to him. It's so crazy how people pick and choose what they want to focus on. No mention was ever made. No mention was ever fucking made over the claims that Ethan was making or the claims that I was making.
Do you see me?
No one ever addressed any of those things. They only focused on They only focused on what they wanted to focus on, which could present me as like a bad guy. I rewatched that part of the last Leftovers episode. It showed you stating exactly what you've been saying and being so charitable and careful for Ethan to help him phrase his words, and had Ethan having completely opposite opinions. Yes, Ethan's opinions have also dramatically shifted as well since then. Like certain things that I think he would be too embarrassed to openly admit, even if he had those positions or not back then, are things that he just volunteers now with regular frequency. And considering that no one actually takes him seriously like a fucking adult, unless he's complaining about how he's been victimized yet again, in which case they do take him seriously, because that benefits propaganda. Oh. Isn't this around the time the Focus on SlopTuber meta started? No, it was already a thing. It just kicked into high gear after this, where all of the Keemstar adjacent orbiters, like the Willie Mac tubes or whatever the fuck his name is, and all of those guys, what kicked it into high gear. They were all also rapacious Destiny dick riders at the time, so they would just get their notes from him. The fucking, what's his name? There's a bunch of those guys, like yeah, Ukraine War was another moment for that too. Willie No Script. Was it Turkey Tom? Boner Box. Hutch. Nick Eats Oreos. Yeah. Like a bunch of them. And if you go back and look at the videos that they cut back then, you will see, like, what the fuck? They're not even talking about Israel-Palestine. They're just simply talking about how mean I'm being to Ethan. That was the only point that they got from this 3 hour and 30-minute back and forth. The reason why I'm mentioning this is because this entire video basically breaks down how these guys operate, how like apolitical, quote unquote, apolitical people operate. Yeah, or XQC. And even now, Asmongold. He didn't do that back then, but he's doing it now.
Framing Palestinians as inherently violent and incapable of integrating into a democratic state isn't just wrong, it's racist. As we'll see in this video, Ethan's analysis of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is steeped in Eurocentrism and reveals what seems to be, if I'm going to be very charitable, a subconscious belief in Western superiority. But first, let's introduce the other two subjects of this video. Speaking of holding a belief in Western superiority, this is Asmongold, a live streamer known for bangers such as,
if you want to consider a genocide as a systematic killing of a group of people, they have genocide built into Sharia law right now. So no, I'm not going to cry a fucking river when people who have genocide that's baked into their laws are getting genocided. I don't give a fuck. They're terrible people. These people are not your allies. They are not the same as us.
A few days ago when you was in H3 chat, they called you HasanAbi and other names, and their mods and the crew didn't care to delete those. Yeah, because Ethan says those things. Of course he's not going to fucking delete those. I don't expect them to. That's the difference between me and him. I'm not going to fucking sit here and cry that he has bludgeoned the heads of his community with like the dumbest fucking propaganda to a degree where they genuinely think I am a fucking Nazi at this point. The saddest part about it is like, yeah, if you think someone like myself who is as anti-Nazi as you can physically and spiritually get, okay, ideologically, everything, if you think that I am a Nazi, you've lost your fucking mind.
They come from an inferior culture that is horrible. It kills people for their identity and is directly
Does Hamas even do Sharia law? Someone brought up that in a convo. No, they do not.
Antithetical to everything Western values stand for, and it is an inferior culture in all ways.
Yikes. Asmongold's house looks like this, by the way. I'll just leave that on the screen for a second.
Also, it's still fucking irrelevant. Let's say that they were. Let's say that they were doing Sharia law. Do you think genocide is appropriate? I don't. They don't. But even if they were, do you think it's appropriate to fucking genocide these people? No, of course not. It's over.
So you can get a glimpse of the superior Westerners' living quarters. Now, it is true that Asmongold has apologized for this horrendous statement, and at the time seemed as though he would try to be more careful when dealing with serious issues going forward, but it wasn't long before he was back on the scene with more bullshit. From joking about rounding up migrants dressed as Ash Ketchum.
What is the probability that Tom Homan would let me go with him dressed up as Ash Ketchum with watching them do deportations?
To saying shit like, the Holocaust probably happened.
I think the Holocaust probably happened. I think probably 99% certainty it happened.
To engaging in revisionist history by way of arguing.
Do you consider 10/7 a genocide? No. What the fuck? No, of course not. Do you consider 9/11 a genocide? Does anyone? Like, people tried to say that in the immediate aftermath of 10/7. But I don't think that's even a position that, like, some of the most rabid Israel defenders hold on to at this point. They try to move the conversation away from the G word to the best of their ability because people will go, excuse me, what do you mean they were doing a genocide? Yes, all war is genocide. Okay, then you need to use a new term for something that goes beyond, you know? This guy's like... Yeah, okay. The Warsaw Ghetto uprising, was that a genocide against the Nazis? World War II. The Soviet troops liberating the concentration camps, was this a genocide? This guy went from double genocide theory to unlimited genocide theory. It's a position that has not existed until this very moment. This is why I love Twitch streaming, okay? Because a lot of people are trying to come up with shit in the moment, and it sometimes leads to really funny opinions. Okay? Australia, genocided by the emus. Dog, I thought I'm kind of dumb. Yeah. I purposely talk about American conquest, and there are certain acts that America has taken that I think would could be considered genocide, regardless of the numbers. And it's, I think, like the Korean War is a great example of this. I mean, a lot of things that America does could be considered genocidal, let's be real, considering how fucking racist they are. So they both down to the troops. Nothing funny about innocent people dying? No, there isn't anything funny about innocent people dying. There's something funny about how you are presenting information. We're not laughing at innocent people dying. We're laughing at your position that all war across the board should be branded as genocide. Then you have to brand genocide something different. Ironically enough. I hate to repeat myself on this, but that's exactly why the ICJ is investigating the accusation of genocide towards Israel. Genocide needs to be with the intent to eliminate or dislocate an entire ethnicity or group of people. That is one of the main key points. Tell that to the fucking chatter. That chatter is not going to understand that because he thinks he's making a woke point. I think, ironically enough, this person, that chatter is like the perfect person to watch this video in silence and maybe try to understand the point that they're making.
That the Nazis didn't burn books to stifle what they believed to be degeneracy, but rather because those books were, quote, written in Jewish.
The Nazis burned books on gender sciences.
They did do that.
First. Now the administration has villainized and marginalized migrant workers, trans...
It's a bit of a miss. Like, my understanding is that they burned them not because it was gender stuff, but because it was written in Jewish and not German.
This guy is an unstoppable...
Would it be genocide if their intention was to displace Israelis off of Palestinian land? No, because then you would consider the ANC's actions, ANC's militancy to be genocide. You would consider the IRA's militancy to be genocide. You would consider the FLN to be a genocide. So no. violent resistance against an occupational force. Violent resistance against an occupational force has very different goals ultimately than the violent, belligerent occupying force and its actions against the population that it's held in captivity. Saw you in Cambridge. I was taller than you. I can ball now. Nice.
Unstoppable force of stupidity, but a very popular one, with millions of followers and dozens of thousands of people who watch every one of his live streams. These callous and irresponsible...
Yeah, by that definition, the Revolutionary War would be considered genocide. Like the American Revolutionary War would be considered a genocidal ambition of the existing American revolutionary figures of the time.
Statements are being consumed by his massive audience of mostly young, impressionable men. Mr. Gold here is able to evade the scrutiny he deserves merely due to his position in the media ecosystem. He's a content creator who plays video games and complains about how wokeness is ruining them. If the things he said were said on corporate media or by someone with a reputation of serious political commentating, that would be the end of their career. If Jake Tapper or even Jesse Waters said that they were 99% sure that the Holocaust happened, they would probably get canned and have to stake out a new career as an alt-right creator on Rumble. But when Asmongold says it, well, it's just Asmongold. The other creator I want to touch on quickly before we get back to Ethan Klein is this guy, Mutahar. Now, admittedly, Mutahar is not as bad as Asmongold or even Ethan, but he too displays a degree of what seems to be a subconscious belief in Western superiority when he chooses to dabble in political commentary. Remember what I said about how these guys approach these sensitive topics in a centrist, ostensibly apolitical way, purely for the sake of creating more drama slop content that ultimately ends up holding water for the right? Well, here's an example of Mutahar doing just that. In October of 2024, Mutahar posted a video called "Twitch is a Disgustingly Evil Platform," in which he attacked left-wing creators and broached the topic of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. At the time, Twitch was being accused of being anti-Semitic. These are claims that I believe to be baseless. Twitch was just highlighting pro-Palestinian voices and creators, some of which were Jewish themselves, and this anti-Twitch hate campaign was largely fueled by this stalwart supporter of the Palestinian cause, Ethan Klein. In Mutahar's video on the topic, he starts it out by saying,
"Now, this is in regards to serious world-shattering events that, again, I'm not an expert in, so I'm going to kind of tread lightly in this situation."
He acknowledges that he will be broaching serious subject matter that he is ill-equipped to deal with, which is fine and can be done responsibly, but again, his position as a drama tuber, whether he's aware of it or not, insulates him from even having to try to cover things in a nuanced and responsible way. I mean, the video starts off with Mutahar minimizing Asmongold's genocidal statements, and then he immediately shifts to relentlessly attacking pro-Palestinian advocates. If you're gonna make a video adjacent to the genocide in Gaza, could you at least emphasize the severity and wrongdoings of the state of Israel as it exterminates dozens of thousands of innocent people? At least throw up a fucking headline or something. It's true that he pays a little lip service to what's happening in Palestine toward the end of his video.
I'm not somebody that is afraid to say that genocide is wrong. I think that there is an actual case of, genocide, and there's an actual case of attack that goes towards the Palestinian people. I think there's very serious situations that go around the world.
But that's only after he, A, spends the first leg of the video doing apologia for and minimizing Asmongold's statements, as we will get into soon. B, spends the rest of it attacking the creators who are actually trying to bring attention to the genocide in Gaza, a genocide our Western governments are complicit in, by the way. And C, does both sides are bad type bullshit by saying that Jews and Muslims are just at each other's neck, man. That's the way it's always been for centuries.
These are situations that involve, a group of people, Muslims and Jews, that have effectively been at each other's throats for not just decades, but hundreds of years. You were talking about hundreds
This is one of the most offensive ways of broaching the subject matter. I can't stand this shit. It makes me almost as angry as I get when I hear like a straight up ultra Zionist take, where people just people that want to sound smart but don't know a single damn thing about what the fuck they're talking about, which be like, who knows, man? It's just like Jews and Muslims that have just been fighting nonstop, dude. Like, this is not fucking drama, dude. What are you talking about? This is not online drama. You can't just like take this insanely careless approach. There's a reason why you didn't talk about it until this very video, you know, because you recognize how serious it is, right? Or at least you recognize that there are repercussions for saying the wrong thing in this process. So it's wild to me that he took this stance, like, where that was my breaking point when I heard not even like his defense of Asmongold or whatever. This was when I was just like, come on, dude. I hate how we've designed this like new information structure where people that are openly not knowledgeable about what they speak on can just get away with saying whatever the fuck they want to. No, he's not getting paid, dude. Openly say whatever the fuck they want, and because the audience is receptive to this kind of, the audience is also not very knowledgeable, like I said, because SlopTubers do command a big chunk of the online watchers, the online viewership, because the online viewership wants drama. They don't want actual fucking geopolitical analysis. They want slop. So the people that are doing that slop, that also don't treat this with the importance, the issue with the importance of it, that it deserves, piss me off to no fucking end, especially when they take a position without actually actively saying what that position is, which is presenting themselves as people who are against, seemingly, a whole bunch of the pro-Palestinian content creators. It's a very cowardly way of taking a stance without saying what your stance actually is. What are you doing now, though? I mean, that's true, though. What are you doing now, though? You think it's just, you know, Muslims versus Jews? That's what this is? Yeah. When Israel is bombing Christian churches in Palestine, they're actually doing that because Muslims versus Jews? Is that what it is? Like, that's how this works? How do you attempt to persuade people like this? I mean, dumbing down the argument. There's a way to dumb down the argument for them to, you know, understand it a little bit better.
Of years of like just institutional dislike between each other. If you've ever grown up Muslim, and I have, then you know that there is a serious culture of anti-Semitism, you know, in amongst the most conservative of Muslim circles. Oh. Just as you will know that there is a serious amount of Islamophobia in the most right-wing of Jewish circles. These are two groups of people that literally are just fighting each other.
But this analysis ignores so much historical context that it's outright irresponsible. Look no further than the Ottoman Empire, where Jews were a protected minority and had representatives in the Ottoman parliament. As our boy Avi put it, unlike Europe, the Middle East did not have a Jewish question. Anti-Semitism was a European malady that later infected the Near East. Jews and Muslims.
That's what's so fucked up about this as well, which is that like Germans have the audacity to fucking launder their unimaginable crimes against humanity, against Jews specifically, but everybody else as well, but certainly Jews, right? 6 million Jews that they slaughtered. They have the audacity to say that anti-Semitism is an Islamic export, or an Islamic import, sorry. What a fucking statement, dude. What an insane thing to fucking say. If anything, it is an export, not a fucking import. It's an export from the broadly Christian majorities in Europe and in Russia as well. The major conflicts that took place even within under the banner of the Ottoman Empire against Jews, where Jews were victimized or vilified, unironically still came from Christian populations. It's so fucking insane. There is no, from a theological standpoint, there is no resentment, no religious resentment towards Jews amongst Muslims across the board. There isn't even a religious resentment from Muslims against Christians, even though Christian forces certainly. Islam is the third of the Abrahamic religions. It literally also incorporates and recognizes Christianity and Judaism. So even from like a theological justification, there is certainly a lot of calcified institutional resentment towards Jews from Christians. You know, the whole Jesus Christ situation. Look no further than the fucking Catholic Church, which until recently, at least in comparison to the rest of the history of Catholicism, actively branded Jews as the singular force of evil due to the whole Jesus thing. But none of that matters at the end of the day. I'm not a believer in idealistic principles. I believe that history can be better explained through dialectical materialism, and therefore I don't think that it's because of religious resentment that people fought one another, okay? It's just an expression of the needs that people had.
Muslims coexisted in many Middle Eastern countries for centuries. It wasn't until the arrival of European colonial settlers in Palestine in the late 1800s.
Brother, what on earth are you even saying right now? Like, I was with you all along, now you're even going south, you're being revisionist yourself, I'm sorry, what? Well, good thing you didn't fucking wait until I finished my argument. And you drop that in there. I'm saying that even from a position that I do not hold, even from an idealistic position and not a materialist one, this is still revisionist history.
Later, the formation of the State of Israel and the violence and ethnic cleansing carried out by Zionist forces, that began to change. It's true that animosity towards Jewish people picked up as a response to Zionist settlers arriving in Palestine, but that tension had little to do with ideological anti-Semitism and nearly everything to do with the...
It's so funny how normalized this fantasy narrative is. Even Islamophobes like Sam Harris accurately identify that anti-Jewish bigotry originated as a result of thousands of years of Christian-led hatred and bigotry. Yeah. Yeah, the church hating Jews for killing Jesus... the church hating Jews for killing Jesus is ridiculous from a theological standpoint. According to the Bible, the whole plan was for Jesus to die. That was his whole purpose. Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. Like, misunderstood. Judas is a misunderstood man across the board. It makes no damn sense. It makes no damn sense. It had to happen. He had to come back to earth. Like, he had to come back to life. What are we talking about? That's what you're celebrating. It's so stupid. Anyway, certain parts of that story are not I recognized by Islam to begin with, so it doesn't matter. Even from a religious, even from a theological justification, which I don't care about. I was just making the argument from that perspective to destroy it within the confines of even a theological justification.
The perception of Zionist settlers as part of a European colonial project. This idea that Jews and Muslims are incapable of coexisting is a dishonest narrative. It's weaponized to stoke far-right nationalism, and in Mutahar's case, it's being used to both sides a genocide. It was the interjection of the Europeans into the Middle East that introduced complex political animosities. When you leave that part out, you are lending credence to some very dangerous narratives. Stripping this conflict of its colonial and imperial roots doesn't just distort history, it hands ideological ammo to ethno-nationalists, legitimizing apartheid and occupation as if they were just natural outcomes of ancient hatred, rather than deliberate political choices. This is a
You're comparing Christians versus Jews 100 years ago to Muslims versus Jews now? Mate, you're comparing Christians of 100 years ago to Muslims now? Yeah, I am. Because Judaism has existed for thousands of years. And for the overwhelming majority, for the bulk of those thousands of years, they were unjustifiably prosecuted, persecuted, killed, slaughtered, victimized by pogroms by Christian populations. What the fuck kind of question is this? Some of those Jews actually escaped said persecution and prosecution and came to the Ottoman Empire to live comfortably alongside Muslims and Christians alike under the banner and the protectorship of the Padishah, okay? Under the Ottoman Caliphate that is supposed to be so scary. That's just an accurate assessment of historical events. True, then they betrayed the Muslims? No, nobody fucking betrayed nobody. That's also stupid, okay? There is no Jewish betrayal here, because the Jews that lived in these areas initially were not resentful towards the Ottoman Empire in the same way that fucking Christians that didn't live in the area were. They took over British Mandate Palestine and used it as an opportunity, just like they did all of the other nation states of the Levant at a time when nation states didn't even fucking exist. They carved out specifically to divide along ethnic boundaries to make them easily conquerable to begin with, as colonial powers often do. It was the European design of the region that has led to so much conflict. And it's a European design of the region that was supposed to create this kind of conflict so that there is constant interference that is justified in the eyes of European audiences in general, Western audiences in general.
Great example of how trying to forcibly stake out a centrist position because you think it adds a veneer of nuance can actually undermine real nuance and give cover to some shitty ideas. Moving on. I don't think it's too much to ask for Mutahar if he's going to broach this serious topic to at least fill us in on the severity and details of what's actually happening in Gaza, especially if he's going to rack up 1 million views by shitting on these crazy woke Palestinian advocates. By all means, broach serious topics, but brother, you have millions of subscribers and the ability to shed light on the severity of the suffering being inflicted on these innocent people. But I guess it's better for the algorithm if you just take aim at a guy like Hasan Piker instead. All these SlopTube guys really fucking hate this dude. Some of them are genuinely obsessed. Take Nux, for example. He's a... What is this, a cartoon? Who has millions of subscribers across 2 channels and churns out videos about things like Snow White going woke, IRL streamers like Vitali and Johnny Somali, and of course, an unhealthy amount of videos about HasanPiker.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Don't Turk watch history? Jews and Christians had to pay the blood tax, had higher taxes, and had their wives and sisters taken. No, that is not a Turk washing of history. You just want me to give you an unfair interpretation of history, a false interpretation of history. Yes, Muslims also paid a tax that was a higher tax than jizya, which Jews and Christians had to pay. Muslims also were, Muslims are also conscripted into the fucking military, where Jews and Christians were not. You have to make this comparison to Jewish people living in Europe at the time, and if you look at Jewish leadership at the time, they were the ones who said that it was infinitely more favorable to live under the Ottoman Empire, under the protectorship of the Ottoman Empire, than it was to live amongst people that kept going, oh my God, Jews are poisoning the fucking well and eating our babies. We should kill them. The vids are an hour long. I know. This is turning into a form of mental illness. Holy shit.
Way too many to count. Nux is also a little more openly right-wing than your average SlopTuber, and he regularly feels the need to educate us on contentious political matters, which I'm super grateful for, because where else would I develop my understanding of fucking trade protectionism?
In the long term, this is bringing unbelievable wealth and industry to the United States.
Dude, look, Hasan derangement syndrome takes many different forms online, but some of the most noticeable aspects of Hasan derangement syndrome are constantly being wrong, okay? Oftentimes being outed for, doing weird sex pest shit. Not all, but usually, okay? That ranges from assault, revenge porn, to direct pedophilia, okay? Sometimes nothing at all on the sex front. I'm not going to say that is universal. Okay, it's as close to universal as you can get, not universal. Always being wrong on political issues, weird sex pest behavior, but perhaps more importantly than all of those 3 things, or all those 2 things, is the fact that it almost turns into a sexual pathology. like a pathological obsession that is incredibly fucking creepy. And there is always like this weird sexual pathology associated with this hatred. It is so fucking strange. Didn't this guy used to like commission and react to lolly porn? I don't know. I don't know anything about this guy. All I know is I went on a podcast that Mutahar and this guy was on, not knowing a single damn thing about this dude's worldview, for the record. That was many, many years ago. And apparently since then, he's become a massive fucking Israel lover and also simultaneously a massive hater. Yeah, it's a psychosexual obsession.
It's worth noting that he and his contemporaries rarely, if ever, actually back up their claims. Just look at this description box. No sources, just a polemic descriptor about how Democrats are cooked, Doge Lord Elon Musk, and what seems to be a bunch more SEO ranking terms. And then he has the gall to claim that his video is for educational purposes. Maybe I'm just being a dick, but is it really too much to ask that when we make definitive statements about contentious political or economic issues, we substantiate those claims somehow? Especially if we're going to make quote-unquote educational videos. Anyway, back to Mutahar. In his video, he calls out a pro-Palestinian creator by the name of Frogan, who said this about American soldiers.
I have no pity at all for any fucking soldiers. U.S. military? Boo fucking who? I hope you get PTSD. The U.S. military that are like, yeah, like, you know, I did this back then, but now I know it's wrong. Like, I'm changed. Like, fuck imperialism. Fuck this. You don't deserve the PTSD. But like any other motherfucker, you're joining them. You're like, oh my God, I want my fucking Camaro, no student loans. Fuck you.
Is what she said crude and callous? Yeah, sure. I would never co-sign the wishing of mental health issues onto anyone, but let's examine where a statement like hers comes from. Frogan is a creator of Lebanese descent whose family fled the Israeli-Lebanese war. Is it really that hard to understand why a person of not only Lebanese descent, but of Middle Eastern, Latin American, African, or Asian descent might...
It wasn't crude. I mean, it was. Come on. Come on, Chad. Like, it is. That's a part of, that plays a role in why people hate Frogan. This isn't victim blaming, for the record. But that, like, a lot of these people would hate her just on her output in general, even if she was, even if she never actually got crude, right? Even if she never actually was rude sometimes, or brash, or bold. They would hate her because she is an outspoken hijabi woman in the United States of America. Okay? But that factors in, like, that, all of those things combined create this like insane situation where she breaks the minds of people and they become insanely obsessed with every little thing that she does, while simultaneously talking about how little motion she has. It is so weird, dude. It is so fucking weird where they're like, you have this many people watching you at any given moment. What happened? Like, your career sucks. And it's like, okay, then why are you watching? Like, how do you justify your rabid obsession with a person that you yourself are saying doesn't have this kind of clout, doesn't have this kind of motion? Like, why are you fucking constantly looking at every little thing that she does? And it's not like these guys are personally going into her chat. They're just responding to whatever the Keemstar orbiters are, the Keemstar orbiters are fucking bringing up in general. Oh. It sucks. See, look, this guy is still here. Lack of empathy. She's a rising star for sure. Same guy, by the way, the guy who said like October 7 was a genocide. All wars a genocide. Seemingly, some wars are more genocide than others. Weirdly enough, that's his attitude. I love this like cowardly ass, I just hate all war approach that people have to Palestinians being fucking ruthlessly slaughtered, mostly children, every single day in this live streamed Holocaust that Israel is engaging in. Live streamed child Holocaust that Israel is engaging in. And this chat is like, hold on now. Hold on, guys. How about no sides, you know? It's weird. It seems like you do choose a lot of sides, huh? I like Frogan. Man, shut the fuck up.
feel a hatred for the imperial, murderous US military that has infected their politics, bombed their countries, or outright occupied them for decades? Mutahar seems to think so. He had this to say about Frogan's take.
Oh, how out of touch do you gotta be? How privileged do you gotta be to sit there on your ass in California and just badmouth the people that take a bullet for your freedoms every single day?
This was another one of my favorite takes from Mutahar's video. Mutahar's Canadian, by the way. Yeah. The military is here for our freedoms, baby. That's right. That's right. How dare you speak ill against the military who's here to defend our free speech? Yeah. Hey, guys, hold on. BRB, gonna go shoot a 14-year-old in Kandahar so that I can defend American free speech. Hold on one moment, okay? Let me go fucking deploy, get my dick blown off in the process of fucking defending a poppy field, okay, by a dude who's only known people like me invading his land, who doesn't know what the fuck 9/11 is, okay? And he's just like, okay, well, these guys are invading, they're killing people, I'm gonna kill them, you know? Let me go take a bullet. And then when I come back, I can say, oh, I defended your free speech. Yeah, dude, the goat herder in Afghanistan was actually going to undermine American free speech. Thank God. Thank God. Thank God for our boys, baby. Woo! Hell yeah. Village elders thinking American troops were Soviets. Yeah, exactly. It's so, I still remember the fucking, was it a onboarded journalist that brought like photos of America and 9/11 and like went and asked the random Afghan people like what that was, and they're like, I don't know. I have no idea what this is. What are you showing me? Yeah. Hey, by the way, this is why we're killing your family members. Just so you know. This is why we're killing your family members. And they're like, what? What the fuck is this? Geez, DPRK take on Twitter? No, I don't care about what this man has to say about fucking geopolitical issues or foreign countries or even Canadian politics to begin with. I care about what he has to say when it comes to modifying a fucking Steam Deck, okay? I care about what he has to say when it comes down to like finding a fascinating subreddit about some weird, quirky tech thing. That's it. That is the beginning and end of my interest when it comes to something that fucking Mutahar has to say. Those are the subjects that he is somewhat knowledgeable on. That's what I would stick to if I were to consume his content. Why the fuck would I go to him for political commentary? It's like, it's a, I like Lady Gaga. What the fuck does she know about cameras moment, you know? Do you come to me for music takes? No. When I make music takes known, you fucking yell at me.
The most outrageous shit you'll ever hear.
Just for reference, here is Mutahar's very charitable coverage.
Blaming military for the actions of the U.S. elites is the same as blaming poor people for buying Starbucks? What? What are you saying? American military members are victims too. Oh my God, brother. Jesus Christ. It's ridiculous to act like military members deserve this level of hate. The irony is, Frogan's take in and of itself, while definitely brash, factors in military members who have been deluded into serving. Okay, if we're talking about that, that's an entirely different story. But get the fuck out of here, dude. If you're like, oh yeah, if you're defending what you did by running around and being like, rah, rah, I'm the one who served to protect your free speech by, you know, killing a bunch of fucking Afghan farmers. Like, get out of here. This guy's trying to get you to say something. I'm calling it. Yeah, I think so too. Or maybe he's a vet who's just like pissed off because he's a 12-month subscriber. I'm going to be more charitable to him. Anyway. Also, the irony is this guy probably does not know that he is fucking surrounded by not only active duty service members, but also military veterans in general. That's just how it is in America. It's a massive jobs program. I just wish the fucking output of the jobs program wasn't death and destruction. And there are plenty of fucking veterans who do get it, as a matter of fact, where they go, man, sure seems like all of this was for nothing. And by nothing, I mean nothing for me, only death and destruction for those who are on the crosshairs, and a shit ton of profits for the super wealthy. You know? That's it. That's why always, I'm in the military now, Air Force. Yeah, well, you're surrounded by other people who are also in the military. It's a fucking jobs program. Get out when you can, you know? Before you are forced to do some shit you don't want to fucking do, and then live with that pain for the rest of your life.
Of Asmongold saying that he doesn't care if Palestinians get genocided because he believes they have an inferior culture.
I just want to preface, Zach Asmongold has pretty much walked these things back and, has apologized for it. In this situation, one could, if they were to extend the charitability, could say that Asmongold was probably referring to extremists in the Islamic religion and their view on people in the LGBTQ camp, all right?
And let's take another look at how he responded to Frogan.
Oh, how out of touch do you gotta be? How privileged do you gotta be to sit there on your ass in California and just badmouth the people that take a bullet for your freedoms every single day? The most outrageous shit you'll ever hear.
This is all in the same video, by the way. Where did all the charitability and nuance go? Instead, he goes on a diatribe about how the American military...
Remember who these guys are charitable to and who they are deeply and pathologically uncharitable to.
Takes a bullet for her freedoms every single day. I'm sorry, Mutahar, but A, you're fucking Canadian, and I can say it like that because I am too. B, are you aware of what the US military has done to the Middle East? And C, since you want to dip your hand in the political cookie jar, I challenge you to name me a single time post-World War II when the American military fought to protect the American homeland and the civil freedoms of its people. Which US...
Oh, excuse me. One might say every war, actually, because weapons manufacturers surely made out like bandits. Just saying. Just saying. They did make a lot of profits, okay? Best defense is a good offense, baby. I got that Mutahar clip mocking Finkelstein in the chamber if you want to see it again. Oh my God, can you say it to me again? Oh, that was such a good one. That's such a funny one where it just basically shows the level of knowledge that he has on this issue. But it also, is this a bad time? Let me in. I got to pee bad. Yeah, I'll let you in. Hold on. Oh my God, I can hear myself on her phone. She's watching the stream. I know. Where after this video is done, Maya's going to be on the stream.
US military intervention fought for her freedoms. Now, there is a conversation to be had about the poverty draft and how the US military preys on underprivileged people and communities and recruits them to sell their bodies into an imperial force. Yes, absolutely. But when that imperial force goes on to victimize entire regions of the world, you shouldn't be surprised when a person who was a descendant of one of those regions has negative feelings towards the US military. Frogan also went on to apologize for her callous remarks, and here is how Mutahar responded to that.
After some backlash, this complete dipshit comes out and goes, I realize that wishing people harm isn't the best way to talk about these issues. Really?
Dude. Actually, I never really thought about this until this very moment, but his response to Asmongold saying that, Muslims across the board or Palestinians across the board have an inferior culture that deserves to be genocided versus how much smoke he had for Frogan. Oh my God. Oh, what a loyal company man he is. Holy moly. It is so telling. And let me tell you why. Okay? Because of the audience that you have cultivated and that you want to continue cultivating. That's what it is. It is so obvious. It is so obvious that he's just like, oh, please, guys, look, see, I'm fucking shitting on all the enemies and I am, you know, offering light criticism to all the good guys. This is what I was talking about, by the way, when I brought up the fact that, you know, Mutahar had to leave Twitter because of the fucking Islamophobia that he received, and also, even more so than the Islamophobia, ironically enough, the anti-Indian hate that he received. Like, he's not as bad as, like, he's not as bad as, like, that one dude on Fox News, for sure, right? But this is the apolitical centrist version of that.
Really? Wow! And these people are supposed to be the fucking intellectual bastions on the internet.
Now again, let's contrast this with the way he accepted Asmongold's apology.
In this situation, one could, you know, if they were to extend the charitability, could say that Asmongold was probably referring to extremists in the Islamic religion and their view on people in the LGBTQ camp, all right?
No, I'm not going to cry a fucking river when people who have genocide that's baked into their laws are getting genocided. I don't give a fuck. They're terrible people. It is an inferior culture in all ways.
So let's get this straight. Asmongold denounces an entire culture as inferior and explains how he doesn't care if they get killed, and Mutahar has it in his heart to be charitable, which is fine. That's his prerogative. But when someone from Lebanese descent says something mean about an army known for bombing and occupying the Middle East, Mutahar's charitability is all dried up. That checks out. Is the point of Mutahar's video to foster genuine understanding and shed light on the horrific atrocities the Israeli state is inflicting upon the people of Palestine? Or is it just to score cheap shots at creators who are actively speaking out against the genocide Israel is currently committing? You tell me. This is not to say that you can't criticize people just because they support the Palestinian plight. You absolutely can and should if they deserve it. But when 99% of your coverage on issues adjacent to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict consists of hyper-focusing on pro-Palestinian internet creators, and the only thing you have to say about a literal genocide is, I think genocide is wrong, but Muslims and Jews just don't get along, man, it is fair for me to call your priorities into question. Now let's move on to the main event. Ethan Klein. This video is not meant to debunk every inaccurate Zionist talking point Ethan has pushed over the past 18 months. Instead,
he's just your average Indian Islamophobic, verified to find Indians. What are you talking about? He's Muslim. He's a Muslim Indian. He's not. He is that. He's presenting his position. He's presenting his position that way, but he's bro. Mutahar is a better Muslim than I ever could be. Okay. This man has done one of the most important things you can do as a Muslim. He has gone on Hajj. He literally went to Mecca. Okay? No, he is not. Okay. Sure, guys.
It's meant to illustrate how his role as a drama slop creator lets him use serious political issues as proxies for personal beefs, avoid doing any rigorous research, and spew Western-centric nonsense to an audience of normies. If you want a detailed rebuttal of all his claims, there are many great YouTubers who have already done so. Creators like Chris Kunzler, Disinformation Tracker, and more. YouTuber Noah Samson did a really great job of using Ethan's content nuke slop video as a launching point to refute Ethan's
Oh, here, this was the best.
Is everyone you bring on a troll?
No, usually I verify people, but I was like, fuck it, because it's really
Is Norman
big.
Jinkelstein a troll?
That's a good question. That I don't know. I'm not too sure about that.
Bro, what was that fucking debate even like, dude? I saw like a bit in piece on Twitter about it. Apparently they were like, yo, Destiny got owned in every clip that I watched. I'm like, the other, like, the guy who you were debating was just getting emotional the whole time. It's like, you're reading Wikipedia. It's like, bro.
Yeah, bro, he got emotional the whole time, dude. If fucking emotional equals you lost. This is such a good video. This is such a funny little clip because you can see in his fucking, in Destiny's mind, because he's definitely better read than all of the people that he's surrounded himself with. He's just like, these are my fucking allies, dog. This shit sucks.
They have sources attached. He's not clicking on the source.
Well, and also I never read Wikipedia to him. I was just fucking, I was like quoting like the either Amnesty International or the UN or the ICJ, but he was just, yeah, he was ultra triggered, but you know.
Yeah, but I read real books, not websites. That's fucking unhinged, dude.
Yeah. Beginning of the clip versus end of the clip. Oh, Jesus. Oh, he was ultra triggered, dude.
Lies and shed light on the atrocities Israel is currently committing. I'll link these videos below. One specific claim of Ethan's that really
it's like Aiden Ross showing Donald Trump his almost assassination moment on the side of that ugly ass Cybertruck, where Donald Trump for a brief moment looks at that and goes, "What the fuck am I doing?" Like, was it all worth it? Not my best moment here as I stand next to this fucking clown and stare at the ugliest machine I've ever seen, and it's plastered with my scariest moment.
Broke my brain is when he asserted that more Jews were displaced during the Nakba than Palestinians.
If the Jews didn't come from Europe after the Holocaust, they came from the surrounding Arab countries that expelled them in massive amounts following the 1948 war. In fact, there was more Jews displaced than Palestinians.
This was one of the worst pieces of misinformation I've seen in the fucking context puke. For the record, it was crazy.
This specific claim is so absurd that I can't not include it in this video. Like I said, it has been refuted by the creators I mentioned earlier, but I want to quote Avi Shlaim once more in regard to this claim. Zionists are driven by the propaganda need to portray the Jews as the victims of endemic Arab persecution, a portrayal that is then used to justify Israel's own atrocious treatment of the Palestinians. A rich, fascinating, and multi-dimensional history is thus reduced to a quest for ammunition to use in the ongoing war against the Palestinians. This trend reached its climax with the manufacture of the narrative of the Jewish Nakba. According to this narrative, the forced exodus of 850,000 Jews from Arab countries after 1948 amounted to a catastrophe, a Jewish Nakba, at least on par with, if not more devastating in its consequences than the Palestinian Nakba. Variously called the Forgotten Exodus, the Forced Exodus, or the Double Exodus, the purpose of this narrative is to create a false symmetry between the fate of two communities. This narrative is not history, it's the propaganda of the victors. Honest history has to acknowledge the part played by all the governments concerned in causing this man-made tragedy. The main difference is that the Palestinian refugees, for the most part, were ethnically cleansed by the Israeli armed forces, whereas Arab Jews, with a few exceptions, were given by the Arab governments the option of leaving or staying. Ethan also forgets to mention the fact that Palestinians were being ethnically cleansed well before the Nakba, also known as the catastrophe. Zionist paramilitary...
And it's not a war, dude. The 1948 war is like saying the Holocaust was a war. It's fucking ridiculous. It was a planned ethnic cleansing campaign by a superior military against a predominantly unarmed group of indigenous people that were forcibly sent away from their homes and never allowed back into said homes. It's like saying the Trail of Tears was a war. It's fucking ridiculous. There was no army for the Palestinians at the time.
Terror cells like the Haganah and its offshoots like the even more extreme Irgun were ethnically cleansing Palestinians before 1948, and those terror cells were later absorbed into the IDF. Ethan's framing obscures the true nature of Jewish migration to Palestine. If you take his words at face value, you might...
There was a war in 1948. The Nakba wasn't the war, but there was a war between Israel, Palestinian militants, and the rest of the Arab states. Oh my fucking lord. Dude, it was an ascetic band of fucking militancy that rose up in arms against the massacres that were being committed. Calling that a war is like saying the Trail of Tears is a fucking war. That's my point. My point is like saying that the Holocaust was a war because, you know, there was resistance against it by Jewish groups like in the Warsaw Ghetto.
I come away thinking, well, the Palestinians were expelled, the Jews were expelled. It's just a complicated mess of mutual displacement. But that kind of moral flattening is exactly what the Zionist narrative relies on to justify what actually happened. Palestinians were ethnically cleansed, which contributed to a reaction from many Arab-majority countries, prompting Jews to seek a new life in Palestine.
Yeah, oh, that's an even better example. Yeah, that's what the Turks are taught to say about Armenia, dude. Like, literally. Like, every single one of you recognizes, with the exception of the Turks in the chat, recognizes the Armenian genocide. Okay, if you want to understand how the Armenian genocide is taught in Turkish school, it is a involuntary displacement of Armenians, like an involuntary relocation of Armenians during time of war because it was out of necessity.
Jewish migration to Palestine had already been taking place for decades by this point and ramped up after 1948. It wasn't some immediate population switch, as Ethan implies. The Zionist movement actively promoted Jewish migration through controversial methods. Some historians claim these include false flag operations to create pretexts for mass immigration of Jews from Arab countries to Israel. This entails staging attacks on Jewish targets in Arab countries and blaming them on local Arab communities.
Müfredattan kalktı, yapmayın. Okay, the Turks in the chat are telling me that they don't even teach that anymore, apparently. Apparently, they don't even fucking teach that anymore. Holy shit, I didn't know that. When I was in school, we were taught that it's like, we were taught that it was out of necessity during World War I. But I guess that was leading people into, you know, understanding what actually took place.
As part of a broader strategy to increase Israel's Jewish population and solidify a Jewish majority. And to make things worse, these Arab Jews were mistreated horribly by their European counterparts once they arrived in Israel. They were solely there to secure the viability of a demographic majority. A particularly troubling example of this was the mistreatment of Yemeni Jews. During and after Operation Magic Carpet, thousands of Yemeni Jewish children disappeared under mysterious circumstances. Parents were told that their children had died from illness, but growing evidence suggests some were secretly given to wealthy, childless Israeli or American Jewish families. Others likely did die, but due to severe neglect, and their deaths were handled with shocking cruelty and insensitivity. Some reports claim children were used as medical test subjects and died from experimental treatments. This has come to be known as the Yemenite Children Affair. The broader Mizrahi Jewish population was often relegated to lower socioeconomic status, faced systemic discrimination, and were marginalized within the new Israeli state, with Ashkenazi Jews occupying higher positions in society. So when Ethan just chalks this complex situation up to mere mutual expulsion, he overlooks all the factors involved in pulling Arab Jews to Israel over the course of years. All that said, this context doesn't change the outcome. Jewish immigrants displaced Palestinians, took their land and property, and subjected them to an ongoing occupation. That's unacceptable, no matter the reason for their arrival and no matter how the Israeli government worked to reshape its population. Over the past 18 months, many videos have resurfaced of Ethan Klein and his wife, Ela, engaging in dehumanizing conversations regarding Palestinian people, literally referring to a Palestinian person as it at one point.
I walked with them to one house.
Okay.
I did get out of the car once, but surrounded with them. So.
Okay. Did they arrest anyone that night?
They did.
Did they bring it in the same car with you?
No.
Oh, different car.
There's a few cars going.
Damn, that's crazy. Was it like, how did you feel? Was it horrifying?
It was strange.
They've also revealed a double standard in the way they view Westerners versus the way they view people from the Middle East. For example, Ethan loves to accuse Hasan of being a terrorist supporter, and one of the reasons he makes this claim is because Hasan interviewed a young 19-year-old man from Yemen. At the time, Hasan was under the impression that the teenager was part of the Houthis, and he wanted to conduct an interview with him. It later turned out that he was not, in fact, a Houthi, but that revelation didn't matter to Ethan or Muda or Nux, and they all ran with the talking point that Hasan promoted a quote-unquote terrorist. Apart from the term terrorist...
Ironic also because we found out about him not being a Houthi from said interview. We found out about his opinions about anti-Zionist Jews from that interview. We also found out, what else was it? There was another thing that I was going to mention. But yeah, also the interview that was conducted at the time, for the record, was not even if he was a Houthi, it was not conducted at a time when the Houthis were designated as a terror group because Biden had actually taken them off the state-sponsored terror list, which Trump put them back on, and Biden had actually escalated them back to Biden had escalated right around the time that the interview was conducted. Biden had actually increased their classification, but it still had not taken place, even though I still, once again, maintain the position. I am not ashamed of this. I would talk to a member of the Ansar Allah movement. I just simply would not do that on fucking Twitch. That's it. Like there is no world in which I would not talk to someone who was a part of the Ansarullah movement.
Being a highly contentious label often used as a political tool to delegitimize groups resisting oppression while legitimizing the violence of oppressive states, let's zoom out a bit and look at the history of Yemen. Yemen is one of the poorest countries in the Middle East. It has been the victim of a genocidal campaign waged by...
Why would you do it on Twitch? Because Twitch has shown time and time again that they are infinitely more susceptible to pushback, public pushback, than other platforms are. Like YouTube is a place where I would conduct that, especially because it would be, you know, there's additional security that comes along with like being able to conduct an interview and then cut it and edit it. You know what I mean? That's it.
By a coalition of Gulf states headed by Saudi Arabia and supported by the West. Israel's intentions align heavily with those of the Saudi-led coalition and is viewed as an outpost for Western hegemony in the Middle East. It is not exactly inconceivable why a 19-year-old from Yemen might be anti-Zionist, especially as the state of Israel is in the middle of committing a genocide. When this young man was asked by Hasan if he was anti-Semitic or simply in opposition to the ethno-religious supremacist idea that is Zionism, he confirmed the latter.
Ask him what he thinks about the fact that in America, some of the like leading groups that are pro-Palestine are led by Jewish people who are anti-Israel. How does he feel about that?
He's saying anyone that supports Palestine, we're with.
He's done so many times back when he was active on Twitter. I did not mean the Jews, but the Zionists. I respect every Muslim, Jew, who stands with the truth, and I will do everything I can to protect him. Ethan's arguments as to why this kid is a terrorist are silly. First, he says the kid is a Houthi.
This Houthi pirate, I mean, who are you kidding? This guy's a fucking terrorist.
Even though we don't have concrete evidence to back that claim.
Every time I see a new clip from the fucking Context Puke that I haven't seen, because I've yet to watch it, and at this point I feel like I've already seen most of it by way of people bringing up new aspects of it, I'm shocked at how gross it is. It makes me think less of people that watched it and were duped by it. I'm not gonna lie. Like, you have to be hopped up on an incredible amount of America fuck yeah attitude to just like see this video and go, yeah, that's right. He is a, let's be real, terrorist. Sick.
In fact, Rashid, the Yemeni guy, denies being a Houthi.
Actual pirate, a actual criminal.
Also, for those of you who don't know, Ansarullah is the movement that leads Yemen right now. It's the de facto leadership of Yemen. Okay? The Houthis are a family. They're a tribe, specifically. So if he was a Houthi, his last name would most likely reflect that he is a Houthi. His last name would be Al-Houthi, not Al-Haddad. But that's besides the point. The Houthis are a Yemeni tribe that are Zaidi Shia.
And terrorists. Second, the teen has tweeted violent things about Zionism, but as we've already seen, the kid is clearly able to distinguish between Zionists and Jewish people, even acknowledging the many Jewish organizations that support the Palestinian cause.
He's saying anyone that supports Palestine, we're with.
And finally, Ethan's...
I was in the Epsteinian H3 circles while still watching your hogwash on YouTube, and the content nuke was so bad and sketchy, it pushed me more into your stream and away from them, Lamau. It's hot garbage. Yeah, but for every person like yourself, there's probably a bunch of people that were like, no, I believe this now.
Smoking gun is an Instagram comment where someone asks this young man if he's a soldier, and he replies, yes. I don't think this is enough to substantiate the accusations Ethan has levied against him. Let's really quickly contrast Ethan's feelings about this Yemeni teen with his praise of Sam Hyde, a guy who Ethan even admits is probably a neo-Nazi.
Sam is an extraordinarily funny guy that inspired me a lot when I was coming up.
Yeah, but Sam is white. He's a Westerner. And if you're a Western chauvinist, all it takes, I mean, you can have a guy who says they're a neo-Nazi, promotes Adolf Hitler, has spent money on the legal fund of other prominent Nazis, is a pedophile, has had his followers directly harass you, possibly dox you and swat you. You're still under the banner of being a Westerner. So obviously it's like, haha, you're kind of funny, maybe possibly a Nazi, right? Whereas if you're a fucking brown kid in Yemen, 19 years old, only known death and destruction in the poorest country on the planet that had a man-made blockade that caused a fucking massive famine in your country, man-made blockade by coalition forces that we backed with weapons and targeting systems that we gave to Saudi Arabia and the UAE, by the way, okay, then, you know, all it takes is for me to assume that you're a fucking terrorist because I saw you with the traditional Yemeni knife and also a weapon. Yemen, for those of you who don't know, has the second highest gun ownership per capita on the planet after, you might have guessed it, the United States of America. Having a gun in Yemen as a citizen does not automatically qualify you as a militant. Unless you're Barack Obama, in which case not even having a gun qualifies you as a militant. But of course, here we are with Ethan Klein and his assessment.
But he's also like, he's just a little crazy. That's, you know, and also like extremely right wing and potentially a Nazi as well.
I mean, I might be overthinking it, but Ethan seems to be strangely charitable when it comes to Sam Hyde, but none of that charitability transfers over to this Yemeni kid. In Ethan's eyes, he's just an irrational anti-Semite.
Or me. like not even Rashid Al-Haddad, but like even his fucking former podcast co-host, like he knows I'm not a fucking anti-Semitic person. You know what I mean? We had a podcast together, and he has called me a vile anti-Semite for months now, and demanded my deplatforming for months. It is fucking nuts. But with Sam Hyde, it's like, I don't know, he might even possibly be a Nazi. Who knows? Like, that's fucking nuts.
But Sam is just a little weird and potentially a Nazi.
Indians are being used to replace white people.
Damn, maybe the Stalinists were right about Leon Trotsky being a fascist. Ethan is also very charitable in his coverage of Asmongold.
Whoa, hey, yo. Okay. He does look like Trotsky. What's up with that? Yo, Ethan looks like Trotsky too. Oh my God, they both look like Trotsky. What's up with Trots?
What about Asman? Because he's juicing hard on Trump.
But he's like pro-Trump, isn't he?
Oh my God, is he?
I wouldn't say he's...
I have to imagine, right?
I don't think he's like pro-Trump explicitly, overtly. I know people try to say that. I think he definitely leans more conservative, but I don't think he's as conservative as people try to paint him out to be.
Inferior culture in all ways.
Well, let's see.
Asman is Trump killed it.
He's Trump coded. That's
no,
a good...
Trump killed it.
What?
Trump killed.
That sounds pretty pro-Trump.
He said Trump what?
Killed it.
Oh, killed it.
In other words,
Killed
we'll
it.
execute
I
the
think
baby.
I think I would say he's Trump coded.
Trump's good at this. ...
I've watched his content. It's not.
That was said sarcastically.
It's not super pro-Trump. He's Trump coded though.
Ethan minimizes Asmongold's role as a dangerous propagandist for the right and doesn't even mention.
That's what I'm saying. Hey, yo, what the fuck? What is that? What's going on here, man? What the fuck? All right, let's keep going. Ethan Klein's new video. Hasan wants to assassinate me with an ice pick. Stalin. First I was HasanAbi, then I became HasanAbi, and now I'm Stalin. Oh, Jesus Christ. Trotsky doesn't deserve this? Oh, come on. Yes, he does.
In his weird comments.
Even though his wonderful contributions to public discourse are plenty and bountiful, including but not limited to the concept of, wait, what? There's more? Scroll down. Oh, that's fucked up, man. You're just handing him this. Anyway, Trotsky coined the term Hitler particles, which is fantastic.
It's about the Holocaust.
You're just saying that because Georgians are Turks, okay? This is my point. My point is Georgians are fucking Turkish, okay? That's it. That's it. Look no further than this photo, okay? Georgians are fucking Turkish. God damn. If I didn't have any fucking, Greek roots whatsoever, I wouldn't be 6'4". I would be literally also 5'4".
Holocaust probably happened.
But when it comes to Rashid, no charitability whatsoever. In the span of a few months, Ethan has praised or done some form of apologia for both Sam Hyde and Asmongold. This seriously makes me reconsider whether or not Ethan actually gives a fuck about anti-Semitism.
I mean, I could take these guys a little bit more seriously if it wasn't for this curly ass shit. Like these fucking double curls.
Yeah, that is disgusting.
Or if his priorities lie mainly in using the Israeli-Palestinian conflict as a proxy to attack content creators who are critical of him. Anti-Semitism is absolutely on the rise. A cursory scroll through platforms like Twitter will confirm that. But instead of targeting...
So if I get it right, you, the political streamer from day one, are opposed by a funny meme man, a hoarding a WoW addict, and an anime power skiller who enjoys lolly content. Why even care about their takes? I mean, I get Ethan because of his audience, but the other two are just a lost cause. Brother, what are you talking about? Their combined power is like being a leftist, especially online, is like being on a fucking island by yourself, being on a deserted island, okay? And then that deserted island is like routinely getting bombed by all of the global superpowers because everyone from a liberal who has a penchant for drama and will narcissistically make the Israel-Palestinian conflict and the genocide going on in Gaza about themselves, and now they're the fucking primary victim, Ethan Klein, all the way down to Palestinians are inferior and deserve to be genocided, Asmongold, who also has fucking talked about dressing up as Ash Ketchum to go on deportation hunts, like hunt human beings, alongside the homunculoid Tom Homan. All of those guys put the bead on people like myself. And they make up the overwhelming majority of commentary online. Okay? They make up the overwhelming majority of the commentary space, at least online. There's plenty of other... There are homunculoid. Okay, homunculus. Okay? I'm basically like a digital Cuba, okay? Under constant blockade. Anyway, my point is, we all recognize how fucking far right the internet has become, but in the commentary sphere especially, it's fucking ridiculous. In the commentary space, it's like 90% centrist right-wing adjacent to far right versus 10% that's like actually leftist commentary. That's fucking me, Lamau. You're more like China. Okay, fair. Actually, you know what? I will take that. I am more like China, misunderstood, and becoming a dominant superpower, and doesn't have to do anything to get to that position at this point, aside from doing what I've been doing. Restrained, reasonable in the global stage, much more reasonable than the belligerent America.
The actual culprits of anti-Semitism. Ethan is too busy doing...
that's true. I do trade with hogs, Bradley Martin, so maybe China fits more. Oh my God. Okay, this is kind of funny. You're not wrong. That's right. I do have a agnostic trade principle where I'm not trying to I'm not trying to actively engage in destabilizing shit, and sometimes will have positive trade relations with everyone.
Apologia for them while solely targeting anti-Zionists. Ethan seems to think that just because the United States labels a group a terrorist organization, that settles the matter. The US, the UK, Israel, and other Western forces are responsible for...
What's your Belt and Road Initiative? You're literally watching it right now. If I'm China, you're watching my Belt and Road Initiative in the commentary sphere. If the commentary sphere is the global marketplace, you are currently experiencing my Belt and Road Initiative right now by pumping overzealots.
some of the most horrific atrocities known to man. The number of innocent people the US and Israel kill for political reasons is astronomical. According to Ethan's own definition of terrorism,
what is terrorism? It's intentionally targeting civilian population for political goals.
Israel, the US, and other Western nations would top the list. If Ethan truly despises...
Wait, when he talks about terrorism, is he... Refugees caught up in the Korean War were shot and straight by U.S. forces? Wait, does he bring up... Is this overzealots' own assessment, or is he saying that the American military's actions in Korea was terrorism? Is this in the original video? Oh my God. I was about to say, there is no fucking way that he actually put that in a video where he's just like eating the American propaganda dick. God damn.
The US and other Western nations would top the list. If Ethan truly despises terrorism as he claims, why hasn't he done full-length podcasts or videos about Israeli forces airstriking civilian residences in the middle of the night with no warning? Come on, Ethan, I thought you don't like terrorism.
I don't like terrorism. I don't like it. None of it.
Why does...
Overzealous, this is not correct. I said I'm a Palestinian advocate. Come on. I gave the fundraiser that Hasan was doing $6,500 in the beginning. And then spent the rest of my time shitting on him and everyone else that is pro-Palestinian. And then even said all the fundraising initiatives that we engaged in was actually fucking stupid and unironically didn't help Palestinians at all. Excuse me. Well, the real anti-Semitism is this. The real anti-Semitism enjoyers rise up. Not liking Ethan Klein is the final stage of anti-Semitism. Not even not liking, criticizing Ethan Klein is the final stage of anti-Semitism. There is nothing more anti-Semitic than this.
Doesn't he address the systematic use of rape and sexual violence by Israeli forces against Palestinians? In fact, he's engaged in rape denialism when it comes to this issue.
That's a huge claim. 15 Palestinian women were raped.
Mm-hmm.
I was sexually abused in photographs, she said. But like, what? I don't know what this is. What is this?
What do you mean?
Is this a source?
You're asking if it's credible.
Yeah. Yes, CARE is credible. I think, at least.
What is
CARE is
There's no source. There's like nothing here. Like shit. I mean, that's a pretty extraordinary claim. I mean, fuck. Like it's serious to say that the Israeli apparatus is using rape systemically.
Has Ethan...
At the time, that's where AB's dad works, by the way, for the record, but this was in the beginning, and that UN report came after Ethan had said that, except he never fucking talked about the UN report. So, you know, where's his commentary on that front? But at the time, all of the incredible amounts of information that had come out, like firsthand testimony that had come out from systematic sexual assault that happened within the Israeli detention policies, both in the West Bank and Gaza, were from firsthand testimony that was delivered to pro-Palestinian prisoner advocacy groups like Adamir. The problem is all of those groups that had real, accurate information were branded as terrorist organizations by the Israeli state and subsequently had to sometimes shutter their operations, or directly also, once they were branded as terrorist organizations and had their hard drives taken over by the Israeli government, the American government will follow suit and then also brand them as terrorist organizations.
Done a full-length segment denouncing the right to rape protests in Israel, where people protested for the literal right to sexually abuse Palestinian prisoners without consequence. Maybe he did, and I just missed it. Has he mentioned the thousands of unjustly incarcerated Palestinians arrested on dubious security claims and subjected to this violence? For context, the security prisoner designation in Israel is widely criticized as an inhumane and politically motivated label used to justify the mistreatment of thousands of Palestinians.
This doesn't get talked about enough. He used rape denial as a reason to use the most foul language against denims, and the way he talked about Frogan after October 7 was what snapped me out of it. This man has no respect for women. Yeah. His rape denial stuff is also interesting because he literally, I'm pretty sure he used like Sheryl Sandberg, who has sexual harassment allegations of her own, ironically enough. Sheryl Sandberg, after October 7, made this like massive, I don't want to even call it documentary, this propaganda piece about how like Palestinians had systematically raped women on October 7. And he used a piece of that, a testimony that was actually incorrectly placed in that fucking propaganda piece to say, no, it's real. It actually happened. Look at this person. This is a direct fucking firsthand account. It wasn't. And has been using that, has been weaponizing that, and has never actually corrected himself at all. Hey, he never actually went back to correct himself.
Under this system, Palestinians, many of them minors, can be detained indefinitely without charge or trial through administrative detention, subjected to military courts with conviction rates of over 99%, and denied basic legal rights. The label often conflates nonviolent political activism with terrorism, stripping detainees of the protections afforded to political prisoners under international law. This framework has enabled systematic abuses, including solitary confinement, denial of family visits, and torture during interrogations. So although I do not condone everything the Houthis have done, and I will never support any acts of violence against innocent civilians or human rights abuses, no matter who commits them, when it comes to standing up against Israel's genocide of the Palestinians, they are on the right side of history.
This is my assessment as well, by the way, which I get fucking yelled at all the goddamn time.
Willing to do something about a genocide, while others just spew their bullshit from Bel Air. To use an analogy that might resonate with Ethan, I think it's safe to say that Ethan probably doesn't think highly of the Soviets. But I'd be willing to bet that if I told him how they took out 80% of the Nazis, he would agree with me that they were the good guys in that situation. According to international law, parties to the Genocide Convention are obligated to do what
also my assessment
they can to prevent a genocide wherever it may occur. Yemen is a party to the convention, and the Houthis, who hold the most political power in the country, are attempting to fulfill that obligation by disrupting shipping and trade to economically pressure Israel and help stop the genocide of Palestinians. Legal arguments aside, I'd argue that the force trying to stop this mass slaughter has the moral high ground in this instance. Speaking of terrorism, specifically the definition Ethan himself uses, it's hard to ignore the fact that his own wife fits that description. This isn't exactly breaking news, many people have pointed this out before, but the facts remain. Ethan's wife, Ela, served in the IDF, an organization widely condemned for its role in terrorizing and illegally occupying Palestinian land. More than that, she chose to leave her role as a secretary and requested a transfer to Ramallah, an occupied Palestinian city. Why, you might ask? Because she was bored.
Forced up. Because what did you do? What was your role in the military?
At first, I was given a role that was like in an office somewhat close to my house in Tel Aviv. Mm-hmm. And it was kind of like going to a day job in an office.
Mm. So like, secretary?
Yeah.
Interesting.
And it was super boring and I really hated it. So I tried to change my role. I filled out that form and I tried it, and then I somehow ended up in a better place that I liked a lot more. Mm-hmm. Before it was a daily thing where you go back home every day, and the new one was in a way that was a base that was far from my house. So you go there for the whole week and then you come back for the weekend.
So you preferred that? Were you gone for a whole week?
I did.
Interesting. Why?
It was kind of like just more of an adventure, more of a different experience that I preferred than to just go to a boring job.
Yeah, by the way, Palestinian militancy is a means of existence. Israeli militancy is an adventure. That in and of itself is a perfect demonstration of the awesome power that a settler colonial enterprise holds over a captive population. That's it. You will never hear a Palestinian go, yeah, I joined the Jenin Brigades because I just wanted to have a little bit of fun. You know what I mean? And I'm using the Jenin Brigades specifically here because in that dynamic, they are 100% dead to rights, according to Ethan's own definition, because he has said, and he loves bringing this up, that settlers are valid targets. Settlers are valid military targets. Ironically, he says that, but, settlers are defended by, at least in this circumstance, his wife. The Jenin Brigades are a legally organized, spontaneous militia that is defending Palestinian land against an illegal occupation. they are not only morally in the righteous position, but they're legally in the righteous position as well.
Sit on the computer and go back home at the end of the day. I don't know.
Describing the West Bank raids where they make their presence known. Yeah, that's why I gave an example from the West Bank as well. Yeah, I'm choosing what I'm talking about very carefully here.
There.
So I was in Dukhifat, which is like a brigade, I guess.
Would knowing this about Gila, just this bit, not all the complete hindsight we have now, change your willingness to collaborate with Ethan? No. It would have been entirely dependent on what her current position was now. Because there are people who have done this kind of stuff and have said this kind of shit and then have completely turned around and recognized the inhumanity of those actions. So, of course, if she was like a breaking the silence type of former Israeli occupying force veteran, then no, I would not give a shit. I would not. Like I would not immediately assume that this person is like, you know, violent, awful, whatever. There are so many people whose minds I've changed on this, and I'm sure some of them are from Israel as well. Maybe not to the same degree. I feel like if you're from Israel and you watch me, then you probably already had these sorts of anti-Zionist stances. It's very difficult for you to, you know, develop an anti-Zionist position in Israel to begin with. But there are plenty of people whose minds I have been able to change. Her positions were public knowledge, chat. What hindsight are you talking about? No, I didn't fucking know this. What are you talking about? Really fucked up? You pay YouTubers to make videos about your takes and literal quotes to defend you and attack Klein? I know. That's what Ethan's probably going to say. It's not what... I don't hold people accountable for what they did in the past, especially if they have actually changed their ways, recognize that they were in the wrong. You know what I mean? Like that's ridiculous. To change is to be human.
That's in charge of the area of Ramallah, and that brigade has like a main officer. So I was his secretary.
She voluntarily moved into an occupied territory to assist in military raids on Palestinian communities. Not out of duty, but out of personal dissatisfaction with a desk job. She even referred to Ramallah as a terrorist city.
You told me once you went on like a mission with them to like a terrorist city.
Overzealots, hey, Hasan Piker, thanks for paying me to make this. I'll send the invoice shortly. Oh, here we go. No, it's out now. It's the truth.
Yeah.
That was kind of a crazy story.
Yeah, my officers and like the soldiers in that brigade, they would go every night on a raid in Ramallah to arrest terrorists.
While ignoring the fact that her presence as an IDF member facilitating raids in the city of Ramallah makes her the occupier and the one terrorizing people.
Did you have a gun on you?
I didn't.
You were not supposed to leave.
No, yeah, not really. But even if I walked with them to one house.
Okay.
I did get out of the car once, but surrounded with them. So.
Okay. Did they arrest anyone that night?
They did.
Did they bring it in the same car with you?
No.
Oh, different car.
There's a few cars going.
Damn, that's crazy. Was it like? How did you feel? Was it horrifying?
It was strange. Very, very weird.
How so?
You see people in the house, and then it's like
he said
the soldiers just walk into the house and look through their shit and find guns, and the whole thing is really surreal.
Fast forward to the present day, and Hila Klein has the gall to say this about the people of the city she terrorized.
I think if you, as an Israeli, go to Ramallah, they'll kill you.
What do you mean you think?
I think I'm saying if you go there as Israeli, you take the turn there, you'll be died. They'll kill you.
It's not only killed, it's like lynched.
As if the occupied are the villains and not the occupiers. Ethan deliberately avoids engaging with this issue. Whenever it's brought up, he deflects by attacking a straw man, insisting that...
Why spend time on this when there's literally a genocide happening? There's not even any new news for you to discuss with Ethan. This is blatant drama farming. Thought we were above that. I'm going to assume charitably that you just tuned in, but this is not just about Ethan. This is about how SlopTube and weaponized ignorance plays a formative role in developing people's political opinions and forming incredibly reactionary thought, which then ends up actually motivating people like yourself who are not exactly knowledgeable on the matter into taking a stance without having any sort of charitability to the opposing position, because the well has been poisoned for you. That's why you say things like, you say callous things that demonstrate your indifference about there's literally a genocide happening and you're drama farming. No. The point of this video is not just to farm drama necessarily, but to actually make a coherent point. My well is clean, brother. This seems silly. Yeah, it only seems silly to you if you're completely oblivious to the way that the commentary sphere works online, especially people that get their notes from SlopTubers who weaponize their own ignorance and actually motivate a bunch of people who are ignorant themselves to continue being ignorant about issues that they do not understand. The question I have for you is this. Way too charitable. This is drama. Let's do real news. The go-to move for hate watchers who can't stand what they're hearing. Exactly. If I was invested in drama with Ethan, I would watch any number of different fuck Ethan videos that have cultivated over tens of millions of views at this point from people who are actually fairly well read, like Gokanaru, or any number of different people that Ethan now actually is aligned with, to demonstrate the hypocrisy of Ethan, as a matter of fact, and to demonstrate the hypocrisy of those people as well. That would be SlopTube content. That would be drama content, to talk about like how Ethan has dealt with certain issues in the past and how fucking silly he's been. You know what I mean? That would be the drama SlopTube. Covering Ethan's tattoo or some shit would be the drama SlopTube. There's plenty of that Ethan does where he makes up shit about me and then we'll spend, hours and hours and... Huh? Okay. Hours and hours on random made up things that he cultivated in his mind. This, on the other hand, has a broader point. A point about how SlopTubers actually motivate people such as yourself to assume stances that you will probably feel shameful about when you look back at it a couple years down the line. You have an opportunity here to learn.
People just don't understand that his wife was a victim of mandatory conscription, but what he refuses to acknowledge is her conscious decision to transfer to a more adventurous role within the IDF, one where she actively participated in terrorizing innocent people. He constantly plays this card while ignoring the severity of her actions. He even had Mutahar on his show, who also basically reduced this controversy down to, Hila did mandatory service, so why are these crazy lefties so mad?
Every time I see like the anti-Hila train coming out there, it's like, so she did mandatory service, okay, now she's like a fucking baby killer or something, right? Like, it's just it's one of those things where it's like massive jump in logic, and nobody sits down and explains it.
Nobody sits down and explains it. Hi, Mutahar. I'm sitting down and I'm explaining it. Service in the IDF is bad across the board. Conscientious objectors like Tal Mitnick are based, and contrary to popular belief, he didn't have his life ruined by refusing to aid a genocidal military. But apart from that, Hila purposely left her desk job to engage in raids.
Why hate on the dude when he's on your side, though? Hate on which dude that's on my side? I'm confused by this.
In illegally occupied territory because she was bored. Hope that clears it up. Also, since you don't take kindly to people speaking insensitively about military personnel, why didn't you call out your buddy Ethan when you were on his podcast and had the chance?
I'm personally looking forward to the podiatrist with PTSD from the Iraq War. I'm not like a military simp. I don't get the whole thank you for your service thing. Yo, I can see the podiatrist with the PTSD. He's sitting there looking at someone's foot, and then he has a flashback, and then the foot is severed. This isn't like World War II. You weren't drafted.
This
you
looks like
SlopTube
content, but I'm willing to hear what you were going to ask.
You're there.
And the job,
you know what it was. I mean, nobody thanked me and my ass, or nobody thanked the fucking cashier at McDonald's for their service.
And the output is not good.
He's holding a severed foot because he's a flashback to Iraq War. His homie got blown up. Sorry about not having health care for you. Sorry about the burn pits. The good news is we will be putting a tiny little toothpick flag on your grave. What'd they die for?
So that we could have Monday off work.
Worth it. Shit, we need more troops to... No, I'm kidding.
But when someone wearing a hijab says similar shit...
Such vile fucking disgusting language.
Oh, how out of touch do you gotta be? How privileged do you gotta be to sit
These SlopTube guys stand for absolutely nothing. They have spines made out of gelatin. The only way I can begin to understand the cognitive dissonance Ethan displays is by accepting the fact that he applies a different set of rules to non-Westerners than he does to Westerners. Hila went out of her way to unnecessarily facilitate and ride along on raids in occupied territory, and she's not a terrorist, but this young Yemeni man who has endured nothing but death and destruction at the behest of Western-backed forces for his entire life is a terrorist because he hates the people who hate him. Alright. Ethan loves to throw around the terms terrorist and anti-Semite. He especially likes to direct those terms toward Hasan Piker, which I personally think is incredibly dishonest given that Hasan has time and time again denounced anti-Semitism for the evil that it is and highlighted how it differs from anti-Zionism.
Israel's doing this, yes.
The Jews.
Well, Israel's doing it. It's not the Jews doing
Jewish
it.
people, right?
No, it's not. It's
They're not.
So one thing you have to understand is that like
a difference.
There
Enlighten me,
is
'cause
a
I'm just
major
asking.
difference because like what Saudi Arabia does is not about Islam. You know, it's not like ISIS is doing what they're doing for Islam. You know what I mean? I'm
Okay.
Muslim. I don't those guys. But either of those guys. You know what I mean?
But isn't Zionism? I'm so confused.
It's understandable that you're confused in this circumstance because like
so Israel's
both
not Jewish.
The Nazis who hate Israel or love Israel, doesn't matter, that believe that Israel must exist or believe that Israel must go away and that Jews control the media or whatever, like both the Nazis
and Kanye.
and also Israel and Kanye, and also Israel itself claims that Israel is doing this for Judaism. And that if you criticize Israel, like I'm doing right now, I'm an anti-Semitic person. So because of that reason, a lot of people like yourself get confused. You're like, so the Jews are doing this? No.
Ethan, on the other hand, when he's not being blatantly anti-Semitic himself,
There's like stinky suit where like, bro, you have to be very generous to a Hasidic Jew.
loves to conflate the idea of Zionism with Judaism, not realizing the disservice that does to Judaism. Judaism is a beautiful ancient religion whose followers have been unjustly persecuted throughout history. Zionism, on the other hand, is a nationalist supremacist ideology. Its own founder, Theodor Herzl, described it as something colonial and noted that anti-Semites would become useful allies to the Zionist cause. When Ethan blurs the lines between these two fundamentally different ideas, he does a disservice to Judaism by conflating it with an ideology rooted in ethno-religious supremacy and carried out through the ethnic cleansing of Palestine's native inhabitants. So when the Houthis see this conflation made by Zionists, it leads to their horrendous slogan where they use the term Jew instead of Zionist. This happens because the Zionist project and its useful idiots have done everything possible to blur the lines between these two ideologies, even though they should remain distinct. That conflation fuels real anti-Semitism, and Ethan bears some responsibility for perpetuating it. If we go back to the Yemeni teenager we mentioned earlier, it is true that he has used the term Jew in a terrible way.
Here he is singing a song with the words, "Do you threaten us with what we are waiting for, son of a Jew?"
But it's also true that Zionists in the Israeli state have deliberately worked to blur the lines between Judaism and Zionism.
I feel I am representing all the citizens of Israel, even those who do not agree with me, a representative of the entire Jewish people.
As Theodor Herzl himself pointed out, the more anti-Semitism rises as a result of this conflation, the more the Israeli state can just...
Why does he have pro Marvel Rivals gameplay in the background? I think it was a subtle nod to me playing Marvel Rivals when there's a genocide ongoing to be like, see, he also doesn't spend every waking moment covering the genocide, not realizing that it was my Marvel Rivals gameplay, and also probably to just like signal to advertisers to stop working with me as well, I suspect. No, it's literally your stream look. Yeah, that's what I mean. He's like, I thought it was a joke to show how obsessed he was about you. I mean, you could take it that way too.
Justify its existence as a supposed safe haven for Jewish people. But as we saw with our guy from Yemen, when Hasan explained that many Jewish people actively support the Palestinian cause, he embraced them without hesitation. That's not anti-Semitism rooted in some deep-seated hatred of Jewish people. It's anger at those who weaponize Jewish identity to shield an ethno-nationalist project that has devastated countless Arab lives. When Jewish American political scientist Norman Finkelstein, whose parents survived the Holocaust, was challenged over his support for the Houthis, He said this.
I totally support the Houthis as a Jew. You said that, Norm.
Yeah.
The Houthi flag says, God is the greatest, death to America, death to Israel, a curse upon the Jews, victory to Islam.
Mm-hmm.
How do you reconcile this?
I have no problem reconciling it for this very simple reason, and you'll allow me, you can disagree, I have no problem with that. From my first conscious moments in my own life, okay, my parents loathed the Germans. They didn't loathe the Nazis. They hated the Germans. Now, my parents were very decent human beings. The apple did not fall far from the tree. But I could understand that sentiment. The only Jews the Houthis have known are the Israelis. It's a regrettable fact that they don't know, have never experienced any other kinds of Jews. Do I wish the Houthis were more discriminating in their slogans? Of course I wish it. But do I understand where it comes from? Yes. And will that slogan of theirs color my appreciation of the fact that alone among the world's peoples, they are resorting to armed force to stop the genocide in Gaza? I have to ask myself the question, how would my parents have felt if this ragtag army happened to be situated on a point in the world's map where they could inflect the outcome of the final solution? And these people, this ragtag people, hailing back to the Middle Ages, they were investing all of their physical resources and moral energy to stopping the extermination. How would my parents react? Would they ask, what are their political slogans? I don't think so.
Ethan is now 18 months into his crusade against anyone to his left. He's used the Israeli-Palestinian conflict as a backdrop for his drama-driven attack videos, even as the genocide of Palestinians continues. His desperation to own his perceived enemies leads him to say things that are reprehensible. Case in point, he's once proudly announced he'd take his family to Israel and film how wonderful it is for his audience to see.
What I want to do is show you guys how I see Israel, because you don't see that
This
when you
was
listen to
also
Hasan
really
and you hear all
fucking
these fucking mega lefties talking about it like it's some super racist, crazy, like Jim Crow style of society. Like, I can't wait to show you guys how beautiful, how multicultural, how free it feels for people, or just it's a beautiful place. It is. It's one of the most diverse places I've ever been.
Let's be clear. He said this about a country actively committing genocide, and as a white Jewish man, his experience there won't reflect the reality for Palestinians. Now, Ethan would refute my characterization of his statement by saying that he was referring to Israel proper.
You guys, how I see Israel, because you don't see that when you listen to Hasan and you hear all these fucking mega lefties talking about it like it's some super racist, Oh my God, bro, you have no idea what you're talking about.
He's now talking
I'm
about
talking about Israel proper.
However, my criticism still stands. Apart from the fact that the Israeli state is actively committing genocide and praising even parts of it while this is happening is insane, Israel proper is not lacking in its discriminatory practices. There are tons, ranging from discriminatory planning and building laws, particularly in the Negev and in the Galilee. There are land laws that prioritize Jewish people, the anti-terror laws that disproportionately surveil and affect Arabs. Take the 2018 nation-state law, which declares Israel the nation-state of the Jewish people exclusively, downgrades Arabic from an official language, and promotes Jewish settlement as a national value. The implications of this law marginalize minorities. I don't blame Ethan for not exactly cluing into this oppression, but that's a testament to his privilege and ignorance, not the multiculturalism and tolerance of Israel.
We should move to Israel to spite them.
Ethan has admitted that he doesn't take criticism well. He deflects, shuts down, lashes out, and completely ceases to think critically.
When I'm criticized, I psychologically shut down. Obviously, I get super defensive and super irritable and super aggressive.
Problem with them and a lot of liberal Zionism is that they can't connect the governance of Israel internally with the actions externally in occupied territories. They see the occupation as a totally separate thing and act shocked when they say, no, they're a part of the same entity. Example is repeated emphasis on Israel proper. Yeah, it's just fucking copium to deal with the cognitive dissonance. That's all this is. That's what it is. That's why I made the comparison when he said that to a zone of interest.
defensive towards those that criticize me in a way that's not healthy. And instead of learning from criticism, deflecting it all the time and making it the world's problem and not mine, right?
From taking aim at pro-Palestinian creators like Matt Lieb, who himself is a Jewish man, to doxing random Instagram users.
This one's real. We caught you, Joe. Public-facing account.
Joe.
I see you. You wanted to be cute? Let's see it. Nice mustache. Strong entry. Here he is. If anyone, let's see if I know, can identify him at all.
Oh shit, that weenie truck he's in front of, that's in Dearborn.
Here's his mom. I'm not gonna clip that for her. Oh, no, you know what? Fuck him. This is what here's your mom. I wonder if she knows what you do on social media on your free time. You love your mama. Good thing she's not Jewish, eh, Joe?
Recently, Ethan declared that Hasan Piker should go to Gaza to do some journalism. When Ethan was greeted with the rebuttal that being a journalist in Gaza is incredibly dangerous, he and Ela downplayed the reality that Israel targets and kills journalists.
Okay, he might not have gotten this entire thing correct. It actually, in some respects, I think makes it even worse. I was talking to journalists that are in Gaza alongside Dropside News and Jeremy Scahill to potentially figure out a way of petitioning the Egyptian government during the ceasefire to try and get Western journalists into Gaza, myself included. And of course that did not happen. And even from the beginning, I said, of course, I would try to make sure that we get, security assurances, which are never going to be 100%. And that 100% security assurance, for the record, is from Israel, not from Hamas. Make no mistake. And of course, it did not happen. Israel violated the ceasefire. Israel destroyed the ceasefire. And we were never able to. You're not a journalist. I said, I'm not a journalist. Wait, what? A YouTuber, streamer cannot make that criticism? I'm not a journalist. I'm not saying I am a journalist. I was saying we were trying to get journalists in and myself. Okay? You all right? Regardless, they made it a joke. They turned it into a mockery, and in the process actually made it seem like journalists weren't being deliberately targeted, or anyone that wants to shed light on Israel's atrocities were being deliberately targeted by Israel. I can't get any security assurances against Israel, obviously.
Well, bro, it's not like Israel
that is worried.
Look,
about.
it's not like Israel's going to do a precision strike on Hasan. They don't fucking.
Yeah,
but it is dangerous. It's a war zone. Like I.
Wait, no. The idea that like Israel would not do a precision strike on anyone with a fucking camera from the West is ridiculous. They absolutely would. And it's not because I have such a high opinion of myself. Israel has done precision strikes on people in my community. Like Meadow comes to mind. People in my community that are Palestinian, that are in Gaza, that were operating like a TikTok account or a social media account that simply talked about what it looks like to live during a genocide and to try to survive during a genocide. The notion that Israel would not deliberately strike anyone that is showing the truth about their atrocity, especially someone from the West, is so fucking stupid. Israel deliberately killed a Turkish American, Ayşenur Ezgi, in the West Bank. That's not even Gaza. That's the West Bank, okay? And the American government did nothing to punish Israel for that, by the way. She was an American citizen. I believe she went to school in Seattle, university student, graduated from university, went to the West Bank, and got shot in the head by an Israeli sniper.
I agree, it's dangerous.
They sure, it's a war zone.
They may.
But what?
He was in the running for anti-Semite of the year. They may.
Nah,
I don't think you guys understand Israel. It doesn't work like that.
They're not. It's not. But regardless, I agree. It's dangerous, right?
Yeah.
It's dangerous in a war zone,
right?
Not because Israel will like target him.
don't think it's like that personally.
Claiming that, yes, going to Gaza would be dangerous, but that's because there's a war going on there, not because Israeli forces would purposefully target a journalist. They would never. Now, apart from the fact that constantly calling a genocide a war is a form of genocide denial and obfuscates the reality that a genocide and a war can occur concurrently, as is recognized by international law, and as we've seen in Srebrenica in 1995, Israel does in fact target journalists, medics, humanitarian workers, and so forth. Hundreds of journalists have been killed by Israeli forces since October 7th, 2023, some of which were literally burned alive. This is an issue.
Yeah, while he also was complaining about me or making jokes about me going to Gaza over and over again, and simultaneously offering a defense to Israel, claiming that Israel doesn't target journalists deliberately, not even just journalists, but like any influencer, humanitarian aid workers and the like. He also no longer is going to Israel. He said he's no longer going to go to Israel because he's worried that his children will be traumatized by the air raid sirens. If you can comprehend your children being traumatized by the air raid sirens as you walk into a bomb shelter, think about the trauma that Israel has engaged. Think about the trauma that Israel has brought about an entire population of Palestinian children. There was a point in Ethan's life where he could empathize with the Palestinian existence. He cried in the first episode of Leftovers that we did after October 7th. He cried thinking about his own kids because he had seen an image of a Palestinian father holding his child in his arms that had died because of Israeli bombings. This also completely disproves the other argument, which is that Israel keeps claiming that it's the safest place for Jews and that Jews would never be safe if it wasn't for Israel. And it's like, well, clearly America is an infinitely safer place for Jews than Israel is if you're choosing not to go to Israel for the inevitable reaction that it brings about for its unimaginably violent actions in the region.
That predates the current genocide in Gaza. There are infamous cases like that of Rachel Corrie, an American journalist who was run over by an Israeli bulldozer in 2003. Her death was then mocked by members of the IDF who made Rachel Corrie pancakes. Apart from just journalists, other volunteers or workers aren't safe either. In March of 2025, Israeli forces killed 15 Palestinian medics and buried them in a mass grave, and the list goes on and on and on. Will the H3 podcast ever retract their statements that Israel doesn't target journalists? Will they ever issue a correction? Will Ethan ever admit that he was wrong to attribute the entire death toll of the Syrian civil war to Hezbollah?
I said Hezbollah has killed a shit more load of Arabs than IDF has. You're saying that's not true? Because Hezbollah is credited with about 500,000 deaths in Syria.
Will H3 ever dedicate an episode to documenting the Israeli war crimes committed against the Palestinian people? Will they ever dedicate a full-length segment to talk about the wrongful persecution of innocent advocates for the Palestinian cause? People like Mahmoud Khalil, Mozen Madawi, or Romizia Ozturk.
He absolutely is getting his audience to be on board with these actions, by the way, whether voluntarily or inadvertently, it doesn't matter. All of his commentary surrounding pro-Palestinian activists being virulent anti-Semites that need to be deplatformed, that need to be dealt with, has created an environment in the commentary SlopTube consciousness that these sorts of actions are ones that you can turn the other cheek to, or turn a blind eye to, sorry to use a better term there, and or directly fantasize about happening to Ethan's own personal online enemies. I've seen the fucking posts that people show sometimes from my snark subreddit, H3H3 Productions, of people talking about how much of a violent threat I am to the United States of America, hoping that I also one day, get this experience, this treatment, despite the fact that I'm an American citizen.
The H3 podcast is a very...
Sending me to fucking El Salvador. Fantasizing about sending me to CCOT. Why? Because I dared to criticize their favorite content creator. It's fucking crazy.
A well-known program and has the ability to really highlight the degree to which pro-Palestinian advocates are wrongfully targeted, but the H3 podcast is too busy targeting them themselves. However, when it comes to pumping out episode after episode about how Hasan or other pro-Palestinian advocates like Noah Samson are bad, they're quick to turn on those cameras and start talking shit, and recently, even getting a little litigious. This whole situation has made one thing painfully clear. Ethan is absolutely desperate for drama. I mean, his whole show has always included elements of laughing at others instead of with them. He's even taken to creating this new segment where he makes fun of aspiring musicians on Instagram. But unfortunately, Ethan's bullying has transcended petty shit like that. He's now taken the most urgent humanitarian crisis of our time and turned it into an endless stream of hit pieces on people he dislikes. To wrap this up, one last example of how Ethan...
Yeah, it's unimaginably selfish, dude. That's the thing that I can't fucking understand how people don't see. Like, you don't have to be the most well-equipped politically. You don't have to have any sort of knowledge over what's going on in Gaza to, one, recognize that it is atrocious. Even if you don't even consider it a fucking genocide, like, this is crazy. This is unlimited child murder happening in broad fucking daylight. And then you watch your favorite, like, has-been popped off in 2014, goofs and gaffs commentary channel, and all he's doing is making himself out to be the biggest victim in this process. Like, it's fucking crazy how the average American doesn't look at that and go, oh my God, dude, fucking think about someone else other than yourself for one fucking moment in your goddamn life, dude. Holy fuck. That is something I truly cannot understand, because even the most oblivious person can probably recognize the indecent way that Ethan is moved around. Because even some of the most outspoken liberal Zionists in the early days of October of 2023 have at least had the decency to pipe down after 16 months of live-streamed child holocaust. Ethan, on the other hand, has only gotten worse and worse over time. It is shocking.
Ethan benefits from his role as a drama slop creator, whether he realizes it or not, is how his audience uses his just a silly internet guy persona to run defense for him.
Bro is still obsessing over Ethan, not like he makes a comedy podcast. I don't know. I don't think it's really funny to do genocide defense over and over again.
His fans push the narrative that since he's just a comedian, he shouldn't be treated as what he truly is, a dangerous source of misinformation with an ego so massive that it prevents him from issuing corrections or engaging in any adequate form of introspection.
And instead of learning from criticism, deflecting it all the time and making it the world's problem and not mine, right?
This is what I mean by weaponized ignorance. When massive creators with millions of subscribers cover contentious issues with half-truths, omissions, or outright lies, it's on the rest of us to call that out and hold them accountable. Ethan says he apologizes for everything he gets wrong and insists he never defends Israel.
Can you name one thing I've said in defense of Israel? Just one. Just one thing I've said in defense of Israel. Or like in defense of the IDF, really. I mean, you could defend Israel.
He even bragged that his wife apologized for calling international war criminal Yoav Gallant a really good guy and claimed that he and his wife have no issue owning their mistakes.
You know, that's how mature people do. That's how how you're supposed to handle yourself, isn't it? Like, what more do you want me to do?
I have no problem apologizing and admitting and whatever is needed when things happen.
So, Ethan, feel free to correct the record on your claims about Israel not targeting journalists, about Israel proper being a multicultural wonderland, about calling Ramallah a terrorist city while ignoring the fact that it's under illegal military occupation by a force known for actual terrorism.
Or actively trying to deplatform every pro-Palestinian advocate within your orbit for the crime of ever criticizing your fucking wishy-washy or defensive takes over Israel. Yeah.
And the rest of the issues I laid out. For the record, I see no reason to hold things over someone's head if they sincerely apologize. The issue with Ethan is that he spreads so much disinformation, and whenever he's called out for it, he just attacks his critics instead of actually apologizing. So his bloviating about how mature he and Hila are when it comes to taking responsibility is, frankly, insulting. It's understandable why everything tends to get transformed into internet drama slop content, even topics that deserve more respect and responsibility than the medium of beef videos can offer. But one thing we can't afford to downplay is the fact that These drama videos are unfolding while a genocide looms in the background. Don't forget that, no matter how much Ethan Klein and his contemporaries obfuscate that reality.
Great video by Overzealots. We're moving on fast away from this to much kinder, much gentler, much more fun times. Oh, okay. Well, I'm under attack.